The two most overused words in all of sports, Diesel. Need a little drum roll. You want to guess what they are? The two most overused words in all of sports. Not Game 7.
Jim Rome.
Not Jim Rome. Must win. Must win. Those are that you have probably once or 600 times. Those are the most overused words in all of sports. It's a must-win game for this coach. It's a must-win game for this team. It is a must-win. Yes, it's overused. However, Diesel, we've been leading up all week long, and there's only one way to look at South Carolina and Oklahoma on Saturday. It is a overused must-win for Shane Beamer. Tom called in, asked us what our thoughts were yesterday. That's what we're leading the show with today. I really do think that term is thrown around way too often because we all know in the SEC, every game's a must-win game in the SEC. However, after the loss to Ole Miss for Shane Beamer, after the loss to Alabama on the road, it truly is, in my opinion, and I want to hear if you, Diesel, disagree or agree, as well as you, the Tolo, 71307. Start your text with the word fan. It truly is a must-win, in my opinion, because Shane Beamer and South Carolina, in my mind, and I know the games aren't played on paper, but in my mind, Saturday, South Carolina's the better team. Shane Beamer has shown that he can do just that in his career, go and be the better team, beat the inferior opponents. He did it against Kentucky on the road a few weeks ago. He's doing it, or he's going to have to do it, Diesel, in Oklahoma on Saturday. Do you believe that South Carolina is the better team like I do?
I do. I do. They have an explosive offense. They have a really good defense. Oklahoma hasn't exactly been lighting people up this year. They're a good football team. They're not a great football team. I think this Oklahoma would probably be competing for second place in the Big 12 if they were still in the Big 12, maybe third place. You know, it's just you move up to a new conference, and where you are, who you play in the very first year really matters. You know, can you hit the ground running getting into a new conference in its very first year? And if you can do that, you know, you're set up and you're in a good spot. But if you're Oklahoma and maybe you're coming into this with a little bit of, loose screws here or there, that's when you start to struggle a little bit when you get into a new conference. And that's where Oklahoma is. I mean, they lost to Tennessee. They beat Auburn. Now they got the real meat of this schedule. They lost to Texas. Now they got South Carolina, ranked Ole Miss, ranked Missouri, ranked Alabama, ranked LSU on the way. Oh, they get to take a breath in the middle when they face the fighting Maine Black Bears.
That's right. And you know, Diesel, I do believe that Shane Beamer said it best not long ago. Life in the SEC is hard. Yeah. And again, that's not an excuse. I don't believe that's a message that's thrown around to feel sorry for Shane Beamer and to feel sorry for the Gamecocks. But I do agree with Shane Beamer when he said that. I do agree that life in the SEC is difficult. Alabama showed that if you make mistakes and you play in the Southeastern Conference, Diesel, and you can't take care of the football, it doesn't matter if you're the better team or not. The word turnovers is the ultimatum. Turnovers are the prime example of what can win and lose a football game regardless of who the better team is. And that's been South Carolina's problem in 2024. Lenora Sellers has shown growing pains as a young quarterback. He's put the ball on the ground way too many times. He has turned the ball over. I don't put every loss 100% solely on Lenora Sellers. However, you turn the football over in the SEC, you're not going to win many games. I know that sounds super simple. It just is. While South Carolina is the better team on paper, going into Oklahoma, Diesel, they've got to, for once this season, quit turning the ball over.
You know, I appreciate the big brain on Madcraft right now because Madcraft asks a question. Before he puts out a statement, he asks a question.
I like it.
What exactly do you mean? How are you classifying must win? Is it must win to save the season? Is it a must win to save Shane Beamer's job? What is it a must win for? And most people don't ask that, right?
Yeah.
People just fire off, yeah, of course it is. Yeah. But Madcraft asks a very good question. Is it a must win to save the season? Let's start there. Is it a must win to save South Carolina's season? Well, you're sitting at 3-3 right now after what was it, a 3-1 start? I believe it was 3-1 start. And then you drop two big ones in a row. You drop an embarrassing football game against Ole Miss, and then you drop a heartbreaker against Alabama on the road.
Okay.
Now you're sitting at 1-3 in the conference, and you're currently sitting in 13th place in the conference. Now, I'm sure a Clemson fan somewhere is laughing under his breath. That's where they deserve to be, right? That's where they always are, right? Well, that's not what South Carolina fans want. South Carolina fans fancy themselves as at least a middle of the pack or top half of the SEC kind of football program. Sure. That's, of course, where you want to be. You put yourself there consistently every year. You have an opportunity to maybe have one of those special seasons every couple of years if you're at South Carolina. But you're very much in danger at this point of falling down to the very bottom of the barrel, settling down to the very bottom of the SEC. I haven't looked to see who Kentucky, Auburn, and Mississippi State face this weekend. I think Mississippi State has Georgia, if I'm not mistaken. Auburn, I can't remember. Kentucky, I can't remember.
No, they played last week.
Okay.
Mississippi State, I can't think off the top of my head who they have. But Mississippi State, Georgia was last week, and I can't.
I'll find it. Yeah. I'll find it here in 1 second. I just didn't have it up in front of me.
Diesel, I do appreciate the question from Madcraft in terms of how are we classifying it. I will say, and Tolos, I want to hear from you as well on this. Is it a must-win to save the season? Is it a must-win to save Beamer? Those are two different questions. That's what Madcraft's asking. I say yes and no. I think it's a must-win to save the season. I don't think it's a must-win, Diesel, when it comes to saving Beamer. In my mind, Beamer's safe. It would not be a good loss if he were to go on the road and lose this game. However, you want to talk about saving the season. In my mind, you've got to win in order to save the season Saturday.
So to answer the first question here, is it necessary to save the season? This weekend, Kentucky plays a very game Florida. I think Florida's going to win this football game. Honestly, the way they're playing, I think Florida's going to win that football game. I think this one's a pretty easy one. Mississippi State below them is going to lose to Texas A&M. And then Auburn faces Missouri. Auburn's probably, that's a tough one. That's a 50-50 game between those two.
Yeah.
So you could be jumped by Auburn. You could be jumped by Kentucky if both of them go and win a football game this weekend. And now you'd find yourself in 15th out of 16 in the SEC standings. Young season, I get it. Conference standings, there's still a lot of movement to go down the stretch, but you also have a very difficult schedule in front of you in the SEC if you're South Carolina. So to save the season, it's absolutely crucial to save the season. Now, to the other question, is it crucial to save Shane Beamer's job this year? No. But I think going into next year, because all of these things add up, right? Seasons don't exist in a bubble. All these things start to stack up. And if you are losing badly against Ole Miss, if you are losing to a team that you fancy yourselves as better than in Oklahoma, and I agree that you're a better football team right now than Oklahoma, that's when administration and some fans, a few at a time, it's a trickle, a few at a time start to say, this is hopeless, this is not the guy.
So on the second point that Madcraft, or the second question that Madcraft asked about saving Shane Beamer, no, it does not. A loss to Oklahoma does not put Shane Beamer on the ultra hot seat. However, Diesel, I agree with what you said, and I'm in the same line of thinking that you are in terms of you need this to save the season. You don't necessarily need it to save Shane Beamer. However, the caveat to that is it's a big game. You don't want to lose this game if you're Shane Beamer. I'm not saying overreact. I'm not saying fire the head coach and clean house. However, you've already shown that you can be in the games with the biggest and the best, the LSUs and the Alabamas. You couldn't quite get over the hump. Listen, I don't care if South Carolina fans disagree with me here. And at this point in Shane Beamer's tenure, Diesel, you're supposed to go beat Oklahoma. You're better than they are. You have a defense that should shut them down. It should be a low-scoring game. You have the better quarterback in my mind, limiting the turnovers. You should go win this game. I think there's two ways to look at it. Obviously, as you can do with any game. Why South Carolina can win, why Oklahoma can win. We all know that Oklahoma, their offense, Diesel, is not good. Over the years, Oklahoma's offense has been very, very good, and now they're all of a sudden struggling just to get to 300 yards. Now, they got there against Temple and Tulane, but it's yet to hit the mark against an FBS team, Diesel, hitting a wall last week, 237 yards, 222 a few weeks ago. The offense has to be better. The Sooners are 130th in the nation in third down conversions. There's nothing happening down the field. The receiving core is banged up. Starts with an offensive line that gets plowed over way too easily. South Carolina's pass rush is among the best in the country. And for that reason, South Carolina should win the game. Again, going back to my very first point, though, you can give all the statistics you want. You can give all the reasonings you want. You can talk about personnel and the Jimmies and the Joes, but the caveat of the conversation is turnovers. I do think that South Carolina's pass rush will give Oklahoma major problems, but if they can't simplify their mistakes, they're not going to win.
Brian Pettit brings up another very interesting question on the stream. He says, think about this. He is safe this year, but if the new AD comes in, it could not be a good next year. He don't have a winning record. So what Brian Pettit is trying to say is when Ray Tanner steps aside and they are undergoing an athletic director search at the end of this year, Cole, if a new AD comes in and he's not impressed by what Shane Beamer is doing, then he's going to move on. He's going to say, peace out, Shane. You're not my guy. I'm not your guy. You know, we're just not going to see eye to eye on things. So ride off into the sunset, join somebody else, go join Kirby Smart's staff at Georgia, whatever it is you're going to do. Right. So that's a big time factor. You've got to win every single 50-50 game down the stretch. An athletic director coming into South Carolina will certainly want you to elevate your talent past the programs that are right in front of you as far as talent. I'm talking about the Missouris and that ilk, right? They're going to want you. They're going to expect you to take a step past them. That is every coach's job, to surpass the team that's right in front of him in the pecking order, right? So if Shane Beamer can't beat the Oklahomas when they're down, can't beat other teams on their record or on their schedule like Vanderbilt that you fancy yourselves as always being better than, a new AD will come in and say, well, clearly Shane Beamer's not the right guy, right? He's going to come in on day one and say, what the hell are you doing? Ray Tanner might be a little more understanding. And Ray Tanner, we know, has a history of keeping coaches around maybe a little bit longer than he should because he was a coach himself and he wants to give coaches a little bit longer of a leash. I don't think that's going to be the case when a new AD comes in.
No, I'm with you. It's a variable that we haven't talked about a lot. I don't know if it's a huge variable, but it is. I want to get to why I think Oklahoma could win. But first, Diesel Mike Main on the YouTube stream says the defining factor is, can we finish, all caps? I like that. I don't have any pushback there. Mike Main, Wesley Roberts on the Facebook stream says, everyone keeps talking about South Carolina's great defense, but they haven't held a good team to less than 27 points this season. Wesley not all in on the defense. And then Texter on the text line 304 says half of Oklahoma offensive weapons are out.
Yeah, so now you got no excuses.
You got to win.
You've just lost all of the excuses. Yep. If Shane Beamer goes in and his team throws up another 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 yards of penalties and puts this team in a position where the game is in question, or you lose against a team that's greatly depleted on the offensive side of the football, that to me becomes an unforgivable situation.
Sure. And Diesel, I'll tell you why I don't – by the way, I don't think it will happen, but I'll tell you why Oklahoma could win. Oklahoma's pass protection's bad, but South Carolina's is worse, giving up over 4 sacks a game. Now, the Oklahoma offense, Diesel, is not where it needs to be, but the defense has been good enough to bend and not break. A really good pass rush for Oklahoma as well. South Carolina also has a hard time moving the chains consistently. There's been a massive turnover with penalties. We haven't even talked about that. We know the turnovers have been a problem. The issues are getting worse in 2024. So while the Gamecocks, Diesel, might have hung around with Bama, the first 4 turnovers were a killer. They've given up a total of 9 in the last 3 SEC games, and it's all about turnover margin. We know that. Both offenses struggle. Both offensive lines are leaky. Any mistake Saturday in this game with struggling offensive lines and struggling offensive units, any mistake will be magnified. And that's the problem I have. South Carolina, the mistakes, like you've got to, at some point in the season, you've got to grow up. You've got to mature as a player. You've got to cut the mistakes out. You know, it's not week 2 anymore. It's not week 3. We're talking about October 17th. You're still making mistakes. Oklahoma hasn't had the same turnover issues that you've had. It was -1 in each of its 2 losses. South Carolina hasn't won the turnover margin, Diesel, since September the 7th against Kentucky. At some point, all the talk from Shane Beamer's got to stop, and we've just got to get in there and quit making the same mistakes. It's very simple.
Yep. Ricky Mullinax on the stream says, give Clemson the same schedule as Carolina and see how they would do. Ricky, you've got a point. You know, I think you're right. I also think that's low-hanging, easy fruit.
We did that a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that you can't really know, right? So it's kind of a moot point to argue whether or not it would happen because it can't happen. Like, right? They're not going to – Clemson is not joining the SEC. Clemson wanted to join the SEC. At least that's what they led us to believe. Clemson and Florida State wanted to get into the SEC. And Greg Sankey said, no, thanks. We're full. We don't have any room at the end. Sorry. We don't need anybody else over here. So we could have had the opportunity to answer that question if the SEC commissioner would pull his head out of his ass and bring 2 programs in that everybody knows the SEC should have in it. If not, you're going to let them get away to the Big 12 or let them get away to the Big 10 or whatever. So when we come back, Cole, let's actually get into the conversation about Clemson. They're playing a very, very weak schedule, as they do every single year. They're playing a pretty weak opponent on Saturday. So the question is, what could we actually learn? Is there anything of value that we could learn from Clemson's game against Virginia? Before we head out, though, we're going to go to the phone lines and bring in our daily Dewey. What's on your mind, Dewey?
Yes, I'm very angry. First of all, I have to agree with Cole again. The turnover's got to stop. If Sellers cannot throw the ball and keep the ball, he needs to be replaced.
Replace him with who? Robbie Ashford that's fumbling the ball?
Well, replace him too.
It's the middle of the season, Dewey. You can't get anybody from the transfer portal in the middle of the season.
The reality of it is, you're right, Dewey, and the reality is, look, at some point, Lenoris has to grow up. It's simple. He's a good quarterback. He's the right guy. He's got to grow up.
He caused me to ruin my TV when he fumbled that ball. They had the game.
Thank you, Dewey.
Thanks, Dewey.
Appreciate that.
Blame the TV being broke on Lenoris Sellers. Oh, what a lie.
Leslie Roberts firing back at Ricky Mullinax. This is what I love. I love Tolo on Tolo violence in the chat. Wesley replies to Ricky and says, the classic schedule comeback. You've beat Clemson 1 time in the last decade.
And by the way, Diesel, Oklahoma has won 3 games against the spread this season while failing to cover the other 3. South Carolina's 4-2-0 against the spread this season, if you're into gambling.
When we come back looking at Clemson, Virginia, what can Clemson actually show us on Saturday? That's next. Texter says, Dewey needs a segment every day, more than a phone call. Texter, be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you wish for. Because we could bring Dewey on for an entire segment if that's what you want.
What a segment that would be.
Woo, I'm telling you.
The Daily Dewey.
Another texter says, what about the flip side of this game? Oklahoma hasn't been Oklahoma in several years. Is Brent Venables on the hot seat? Well, texter, by virtue of the fact that they just gave him a contract extension 6 months ago, that's worth 6 years, I'd be willing to bet no.
Not yet.
Willing to bet no. The powers that be loved him 6 months ago enough to give him another big fat contract starting at $7.2 million this year, increasing to $7.925 million by 2029. I'm pretty sure Brent Venables is safe, at least for the time being. It's not like what they've got going on in Oklahoma is the situation at Florida.
No.
Right? Where they're struggling to be a 500 football team, and it's going to go south real fast on them this season.
Well, it's your first day of class, right?
Yeah.
You're in
your
the
first
SEC
year in a new
for the
conference.
Very best conference there is. There has to be a little leeway given there.
Texters, don't forget, we're looking for your upset picks. You can text them in 71307. Give us your name, your game, and the spread. We've got, how many Tolos have we got picks in so far? 60 for the week. We always get about another 25 or so on Thursdays and another 15 to 20 on Fridays. People wait till the last minute. And I think, Cole, that we can beat last week's total, which is the biggest week we ever had. We had 112 individual pickers last week. I know for a fact that we've had new picks from Yin Gravy Nuts.
One more time. Can you say that again?
Yin Gravy Nuts. We got a new pick from Where Shoals Tiger, a new pick from Big Dom, and a new pick from Hard Knocks. Oh, and Dakota is new as well.
How many we at?
We are now at 60 picks. So
plus
we need yours.
Plus one, JB on the text line.
Look at you, JB, on top of things.
So let me do some quick math. We've got 61. You said we had how many last week?
We had 112.
112 last week. So we need 51 more Tolos today and tomorrow.
We got this.
In order to tie last week's. But let's go ahead and call it 52 more to break the record, which I think we can.
Let's do it. So Clemson taking on Virginia this weekend. We got a battle of mentor and mentee with Virginia. Cole, the question is, what can we really learn about Clemson this weekend against Virginia that we didn't learn last week against Wake Forest, the week before that against Florida State, or the week before that against Stanford? Clemson has had a fairly consistent play over the past couple of weeks. Stanford was not the cleanest football game for Clemson, but they've had 4 games this season, Cole, with over 500 yards of total offense. They had 566 against Wake, 500 yards against Florida State, 405 yards against Stanford, and then the 2 weeks prior to that, one of which I've completely blocked out of my mind. Clemson put up like 700 yards of offense in week 2 of the football season. But again, what can we learn about this team? We're not learning much from Dabo, right? We went through the audio yesterday of the Tuesday press conference and a whole lot of nothing burgers being thrown out there. And it's hard, right? Like right now, it's hard to find anything to really criticize about what this team is doing wrong, about how this team is going about its business, because they're not in the news like Georgia.
Yeah.
They're putting up consistently big offensive numbers. Cade Klubnik seems like he's rounding into the form of the guy that we thought Cade Klubnik was going to be. The defense is pretty good, but not nationally elite. I think last time I looked, they were ranked like 16th or 17th in the country in defense, which, again, pretty good, just not elite on the highest possible levels, Cole. What can we learn? What can we actually take away from this game?
You know, it's interesting because we have no data in terms of conference games, of ACC games, that show us how to test Clemson, right? We know that the very first game of the season against an SEC opponent in Georgia, we were provided data then. We were provided data on how to shut down Clemson and how to score on Clemson. The issue is we've been given zero data in the ACC. And we've had the conversation, you and I have, about which team will be able to give us that. Mike Main brings up a very good point on the stream. He says, I think the useful data for Clemson will come in the next 3 games after Virginia, Louisville, VT, and Pitt. And I don't push back there, Mike Main. I don't disagree. Diesel, to answer your question, what can we learn? Virginia has to do what Wake Forest did for the first 6 minutes of the game in terms of actually putting pressure on this Clemson offense. There were probably 5 total minutes of me watching that game last Saturday in the first 5 to 6 minutes where I thought maybe this could be a close game, and then Clemson busted it open.
Yeah.
Consistency against Clemson from the ACC teams, it's very difficult to find data on how to stop them. So to give you an answer, I'd say we can learn from Clemson that it doesn't matter the opponent. They're going to focus on themselves. They're going to be elite in the ACC. Yeah. But I want to see what we can actually learn from Virginia to see if we can actually have a close game for once this ACC play.
Yeah, so Clemson has put the clamps on the last 2 weeks. Again, Stanford, that game was the anomaly over the past 5 weeks. But since then, they put up gaudy numbers on offense, 566 and 500 against Wake and Florida State. Total defense, they've given up 233 and 250, which is really good.
Yep.
Rushing defense, this is one that is certainly interesting. If you can stop the run, you put yourself in a position to be successful, right? If you can not let them get 5-6 yard chunk plays running the ball, well, against Wake Forest, Florida State, and Stanford, they've given up an average of 3.11 and 5.4 yards per carry. And Clemson's not beating themselves up in penalties. 42 yards, 30 yards, and 35 yards the last 3 weeks. If Clemson can maintain that standard, and it's what Dabo always preaches, it's playing against ourselves. It's playing against our own standards. We have our own goals that we want to hit. If they can mimic those average numbers of those last 3 football games, Cole, they're going to handle Virginia very, very easily. Now, what Virginia does well is that they throw the ball really, really well. Yeah. Virginia has a quarterback, Calandria is his name, Anthony Calandria. He has 1,500 yards on the season. Again, albeit against Boston College, Coastal Carolina, Wake Forest, Louisville, and Maryland, and Richmond, I think, was on their schedule as well. But he's got 1,500 yards already on the season in 6 games. He's completing 65% of his throws. He's not throwing the ball away a lot. 4 picks, 11 sacks on the season. So they're doing a decent job keeping him upright. He's completing a lot of passes. And they don't have much of a run game to speak of. So you got to clamp down on that run game. Don't allow it to get out of hand, and then just shut down Calandria.
And that's the problem, though. Like, when you talk about playing this Clemson defense, Diesel, which is a very good Clemson defense, if you're telling me that any offense that Clemson plays in the ACC is one-dimensional, I mean, they almost have no shot. And I hate to be like Debbie Downer, no, Virginia can't keep it close, because I do think, in a way, Virginia could make this closer than last week's game. Yeah. However, when you look at how good their defense is, how good Clemson's defense is, and how much depth they have, I do think that when you look at an offense like Virginia, there are question marks in terms of, can Virginia do enough to keep Clemson off balance defensively? And again, I just don't know if I can believe that yet without seeing it done yet.
Yeah, Virginia, like I said, doesn't give up a ton of sacks. 11 on the season. That's 2 sacks per game, a little under 2 sacks per game. So the offensive line of Virginia is pretty solid. So if I'm Clemson, if I'm the defensive staff there, I'm saying contain the run. Don't let Calandria get out and run. He's got 242 yards, 3rd leading rusher on the team this year. Two running backs, Brown and Pace, have about 740 yards combined between them. They are a throw first kind of football team. Yeah. And if you can contain the run, make them one-dimensional, now you get to go out there and be ball hawks and try to get a lot of interceptions against this team.
And another thing is, if you're Virginia, if you're any opponent in the ACC that Clemson plays, Diesel, you have to figure out a way to muddy these games up. Mm-hmm. You just can't go out there and run track with track stars. You've got to find a way to muddy this thing up, slow it down, control time of possession like Pittsburgh used to do so good. They beat Clemson, in the past decade. One of the years when Clemson won the national championship, we've seen Clemson slip up. We've seen no slip up this year. We've seen Clemson running with people who aren't even on the same track as Clemson is. And that's the problem.
Here's an interesting thing about that is Virginia has a lot of players on this team who have busted open big plays. Now, without going back and watching film on Virginia, we just don't know what was the situation around those plays. But they've got 7 receivers with a play of over 33 yards this year. That tells me either they're running incredible routes or they're just out-athleting teams in their way, and they're getting a lot of broken plays. So It's really hard without going back and watching the film on that. But big plays in the passing game is really what Virginia has feasted on this season. That's going to be a big thing. Again, if you can keep the run in front of you, make them throw it. You can put a couple you can put an extra safety back there. You can play zone, and maybe you can pick off some passes.
Texter says Virginia has a former Clemson running back, Kobe Pace, right, Texter? 419, Clemson's defense is ranked a lot better after playing in the ACC than they were after Georgia, I'm assuming. Dangerous to play the last 10 games. Let me click on the text. Before the Carolina game and not be challenged. Well, Texter, let me ask you this question. 419. When has it been any different? When has it been any different with Clemson playing Carolina the last game of the season coming off of an ACC cupcake schedule? It's never been different. It's always been this way. It's always dangerous to go into a game. Now, there were a lot of Carolina-Clemson games that it didn't matter because Carolina wasn't good. They couldn't challenge Clemson. But and to your point, it's not – the texture's basically saying it's not good for Clemson to go through cupcakes before they play Carolina because Carolina will actually test Clemson. I understand your point, and I would assume, Diesel, that if you're Clemson, when you have the schedule you have, you can only focus on yourself. And I think that's where they are. I think they can only focus on themselves, not worry about how bad their opponents are. Because, Texter, we all know South Carolina's improved this year. We talked about it the other day. If Carolina and Clemson played today, who would win? I think it'd be a very close game. But it's been this way every year.
Yeah, and, with Clemson, you can't play around with teams like Virginia. You have to absolutely smack them around and show the college football world that you're flat out better than them because it's not going to help you in climbing up the rankings. Clemson currently sitting at number 10. That's not a safe spot right now. As far as if you don't go win the ACC championship game, you're not guaranteed. Obviously, you lose an ACC championship game. Even if you were still there at number 10, you may fall back to 11 or 12. So you're not in a safe place. You've got to go out there and show the college football world that you're head and shoulders better than everybody else in your conference. That's all you can do at this point. Clemson can't afford messing around and winning a 35-31 kind of football game against Virginia, which is what kind of took me aback with the way they handled the second half of the Florida State game. Florida State, everybody knows Florida State is terrible. So you can't afford to not score a single point in the second half against a team like Florida State. You have to put your foot on the throat.
Diesel, let's keep the Clemson topic, the Clemson conversation going, but in a different way. In the very next segment, we haven't talked about this a lot this season especially, but I want to ask the question. Is there any fixing these two quarterbacks? Are Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson, are they hopeless? Do we have to use the B word? I hope not. Your thoughts next. Diesel, 47 more Tolos is what we need. 47. 4-7.
Yeah.
Upset picks challenge. What am I talking about? We need 47 more Tolos to enter this week's challenge if we're going to break last week's challenge. We've seen Panther Boy. We've seen, Fred S. We've seen several today. We know that Wednesday's the hot day, right? Everybody gets theirs in on Wednesday. So, Tolos, if you're going to help us break last week's record, we need 47 more today and tomorrow. I think it can be done, though.
We have a Tolo who did not put their name on their pick. Tolo, if your last 4 digits of your phone number are 1006, you didn't tell us your name. So resubmit your pick.
What was the game?
They also got the game wrong. They wrote North Greer.
Oh, no.
Or versus Oregon State plus 7.5. They meant UNLV versus Oregon State for 7.5.
Now,
points.
North's the name, right? We have North in the challenge before or no? Maybe I thought we did.
I don't know.
So who's your name? What's your name? We need your name.
Yeah, Tolo, if your number ends with 1006, please resubmit your pick because they wrote North Greer 1, Oregon State plus 7.5. That is an invalid pick. Tolo, please resubmit.
Rev Red just now got his in. Georgia plus 5 versus Texas, says Rev Red. That's exactly how you're supposed to do it. Good job, Rev Red. We're now down to 46. I asked the question on the other side as we went in the break, and we've had a few on the stream chime in as well. But Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence, Diesel, their teams suck. The quarterbacks right now aren't playing well. I asked the question, are they broken? Like, is it time for us to use the bust word with Deshaun and Trevor Lawrence, or is that too far? Because we both know what they were projected to be coming out of college into the NFL. They haven't been that. We know that Trevor Lawrence and Urban Meyer in year number 1 was not good. It was not a good start for the quarterback. Doug Peterson came in second season after going to a Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles, and they showed really vast improvement. However, the last couple of years, they've shown regression, Diesel. Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, are they broken?
I think Trevor Lawrence, I'm leaning to saying yes.
Ooh.
Trevor Lawrence is broken. There's something, I don't know what's going on with Trevor Lawrence that's leading him there. I think Deshaun Watson started his NFL career in a very strong way. And then obviously things went awry. I don't know if something in his heart and his mind changed and he changed with it. But like the Deshaun Watson we see out there on the field week in and week out is not the same Deshaun Watson that played football at Clemson. Like when he played at Clemson, there was joy in the way he played. There was positivity and happiness in the way that he played. And then he went off to Houston and things changed, Cole. Like I still look back at a viral video of Deshaun Watson playing Nerf basketball with porn star Mia Khalifa. And I'm like, who is this guy right now?
That's not the same guy.
This doesn't seem like the same guy. This doesn't seem like the Deshaun Watson that played at Clemson. Why would Deshaun Watson, who played at Clemson, be hanging out with world-famous porn stars?
Mike Main has a pretty good comment on the YouTube stream. I think Watson is done. I also think Trevor is a decent quarterback in a bad franchise, a la Bryce Young in Carolina. I don't push back a ton there. Look, Jacksonville, to Samuel's point on the Facebook stream, who says Jacksonville needs an offensive line, Cleveland, well, enough said. Jacksonville's just not a good football team. They haven't done a good job in the front office of giving Trevor what he needs. So is it completely fair to say that Trevor Lawrence is broken? I don't think so yet, Diesel. I think Trevor Lawrence may need a fresh start. I think he may need a fresh start in a new city just to see if new personnel, new coach, better coaching, better general managers can help the guy succeed.
And he needs a fresh start in a place that has all of those things already figured out.
Yeah.
Because, look, we saw Sam Darnold go to multiple places and suck at multiple franchises, end up somewhere that has positivity and has the pieces figured out. Now he's crushing it in Minnesota, right? I mean, it is possible. We saw it with Baker Mayfield. Go to multiple places where he sucked. And then he goes somewhere with a good structure around him And it turns out he's actually a pretty good quarterback. He's not as bad as we all thought he was. That's the hard part about the NFL is the best players go to the worst teams, right? When you're playing in college, if you're an elite quarterback playing in college, you've got the best of the best everywhere around you. You've got a great head coach. You've got great position coaches. You've got great strength coaches. You've got great running backs and wide receivers and offensive line. You've got everything you need around you. Then you go to an NFL team, you have none of that. Yeah. You have none of that.
No, I'm with you. Texter from the 480 says, not sure Watson is a bust since he was productive early, but ETN and all those DL high draft picks from Clemson are bust, and Lawrence is getting there fast. I think the opposite. I think Deshaun's turned into a bust. I can't call Trevor Lawrence a bust yet. I still have to see what Trevor Lawrence could do in a good system with a good coach. And look, Doug Peterson's a good coach, but for whatever reason, the experiment's just not working. Texter says Diesel Dave Canales can fix Trevor Lawrence.
I would take Trevor Lawrence in Carolina in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people would. I just feel like he needs to be in a spot in a franchise that's built for his style of offense. I don't see that when I watch Jacksonville. I don't know exactly what offense out there off the top of my head would be the best fit for him, but I just don't know that the Jacksonville experiment's going to end well. And again, I don't know what other teams would give for him. Maybe a team like New York, what Trevor could do in New York if Daniel Jones doesn't work out. Maybe the Giants could get Trevor Lawrence on a cheap deal, something like that. But he just doesn't have the guys around him, in my opinion, in order to be a successful quarterback.
When we come back, Cole, we dive back into the Upset Picks Challenge. We'll go back over our picks, relay some of the picks that have come in already today, and, of course, ask you, Tolos, the heck you waiting for? We'll get your picks next on the Fan Upstate. Now, you've heard Cole and I talking about this thing called the Upset Picks Challenge. And every single time we talk about it, we get new Tolos who are getting into the challenge, getting into the game.
What's a Tolo, by the way?
It's a person who turns it on and leaves it on.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, it's a regular listener of this show. It means turn it on, leave it on. Thank you. It's some terminology that we keep putting out there because, again, new people each and every day to the show. So if you want to be a part of this wire-to-wire upset picks challenge, number one, it's absolutely free and it's a whole lot of fun. Number two, you still have the opportunity to make a big jump up into the leaderboard and really make your voice be heard. Because we had a Tolo a few weeks ago, Cole. Only one took Vandy over Alabama. It was the largest single hit on an upset pick ever in this challenge. And this particular Tolo, whose name off the top of my head escapes me.
I was trying to think too. I can't remember.
And find it here in just a second. That was who was that? Which Tolo was that? We'll find it. James Owens.
James
hit for 23 points. He hasn't hit since, but guess what? He's still in 28th place in this challenge. Out of the 80-some Tolos who have points. Out of the 171 Tolos who have gotten us a pick over the course of the season. So there's a lot of people who don't have any points in this, and that's okay.
I'm about to be one of those.
You're about to be. You've got 5, Cole. you have to make a pick because you're here every week on the show.
It's like Wesley said. I'm playing good golf right now.
Yeah,
just not the upset picks challenge.
Exactly. So here's how this challenge works, Tolos. You go on ESPN.com and you find a game that's going to be played this upcoming weekend that you think the betting underdog stands a chance to go out and win the football game outright, not against the spread, but win the game outright. And then you text it to us during show hours, starting at 4:00 on Wednesdays, but on Thursdays and Fridays, 3 to 7. You send us your pick to 71307. That's our text line. Start your text with keyword fan, and then give us your name, your game, and the spread. Sparty Party 12 gets his in. He says he wants North Texas plus 12 over Memphis. So Tolos, in case you're wondering how the scoring works, if North Texas does in fact upset Memphis, Sparty Party 12 will get 12 points. And that's a big hit.
That'd be very big right now.
That's a big hit if you get one of those. I know Sparty Party 12 is on the list somewhere. He's on the leaderboard somewhere. He's got points, but I can't find. He's got 12 points right now, or excuse me, 11.5 points. So if he hits this, he has 23.5 points, and all of a sudden Sparty Party 12, depending on what happens around him, could be hovering around the top 20, in this challenge.
I wanted to look this up, Diesel, because it felt like just hearing you and I go through this upset picks challenge this season and see the points get like really high, right? I almost had a feeling as if we've seen a lot of upsets this year.
Yeah, we have.
There have been 21 upsets this year with at least one AP ranked team in the first 6 weeks. Obviously, there's a ton more upsets happen every week of teams that aren't ranked.
Yep.
But there have been 21 in the first 6 weeks of teams who are ranked in the AP poll.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
It's huge. We're seeing a year of utter chaos
there. You want to know how that compares? The number's 21 this year. Think about this for a second. 21.
And we're 6 weeks into the season.
6 weeks. Since NIL began in 2021, Diesel, there were 16 upsets in 2023, 2022 through the first 6 weeks. We're already blowing it out of the water.
So what that's telling me, Cole, is you can go out and maybe statistics are proving us wrong when it comes to our opinion on Dabo Swinney. It's proving that going out and getting great players from the portal ain't all it's cracked up to be. That you bring in talent, and if you don't really know how to use it, if you don't really know how to manage those personalities, manage the locker rooms, things can get out of hand. Things can go awry. Maybe the player isn't all that into playing for you after all. Yeah, they already got paid, but that doesn't matter. You can't take their money away now for poor performance. That's a very interesting question. It's a very interesting stat.
And what will be interesting to continue to watch, Diesel, is as the NIL era continues, will we ever see an upset that notches the score of an upset in terms of the magnitude of an App State Michigan or a little NIU Notre Dame this year was very big. There's no doubt about that. But according to Forbes Betting, the 5 biggest betting upsets of all time all preceded the NIL era.
Interesting.
There have been none that happened in the NIL era.
And what were those upsets? Do you have them by chance?
2007. I'll have to see what game it was. It was arguably 62 ranked versus unranked upsets in 2007. So that was one of the years. I'll have to see what those exact 5 were. But all 5 of the biggest upsets in all time of college football have all I can't talk today all of a sudden, have all happened before the NIL era. I find it fascinating to see if we'll ever see as big upsets post-NIL as we did pre-NIL.
Yeah, that's I think it's going to still happen, probably not as much as it used to. Think an elite FCS team that it hasn't been elite for a long time. So not the North Dakota States of the world, not the South Dakota State, which has been really good recently. But think those teams that are at the tippy top of the FCS, who are really good football teams, but just don't get the national attention that they get. They go out there and they schedule a top 10 team to start the season. I think it could happen, especially in this NIL era when you got and portal area where you got players that haven't been on the same team for very long. Maybe they don't get along. Maybe the tight end who's supposed to be blocking for the running back doesn't like the cut of his jib, doesn't like the fact that this hotshot running back who just came in from insert big school here is walking through the door like he owns the place, and so he's not blocking quite as hard for that guy. Yeah, I mean, I think it could happen. It could certainly happen. So Tolos who are getting their picks in today. Shane from Sugar Tits taking Nebraska plus 6.5 over Indiana. We've got Isaac who's taking Old Dominion plus 10 over Texas State. Wesley Roberts wants North Texas plus 11.5 against Memphis. Rev Red is taking Georgia plus 5 against Texas. So you Tolos who are not familiar with this game yet, it's up to you. How you want to play this game. Do you want to go for the biggin? Do you want to go for that huge hitter, that Georgia Tech 11.5 over Notre Dame game? There's probably some big ones in here that I haven't quite found. Just kind of scrolling back, looking to see if I can find any big-time spreads. And there haven't been a ton of them this week. We've got a lot of people taking North Carolina State over Cal for 10 points. I believe that's the game you took. Cole.
NC State?
Yeah, NC State over Cal.
Let's go Wolfpack, baby.
We have, here we go. We have Tolo, Keith, and Fountain Inn taking Ball State over Vanderbilt.
Wow.
The hot team right now, plus 25.5 points. So if Tolo Keith hits on this one, he vaults way up on the leaderboard. So it's entirely up to you how you want to play this one.
Diesel, I've got the 5. I've got the 5 biggest upsets in college football of all time that all happened pre-NIL, okay? There's 5. These are the 5 biggest according to Forbes betting. Of the 5, do you think you can guess any of the 5? I know you can guess one.
One of them is App State, Michigan.
One of them is App State, Michigan, September 1st, 2007. Michigan was favored by 33 points, and App State won 34-32. That's one.
I'm going to say that maybe another one was Georgia Southern, Florida.
No. That's a good guess, though.
Because Georgia Southern beat Florida, I think.
Was that
no, they weren't still FCS at the time. This would have been early in that would have been probably like 2014, 2015 or so.
That's a good guess.
Just made their way into FBS.
So the other 4
biggest upsets ever.
2010, James Madison Dukes over Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech Diesel's a 33-point favorite. JMU won 21-16. That's 2. You got the App State, Michigan. 2017, Liberty over Baylor. I forgot about that one until I read it.
Was Liberty still FCS at the time?
I don't know. It was Matt Rule's. It was Matt Rule's first game as Baylor's coach.
Man,
remember that? First game.
No, I don't.
First game ever.
I don't.
By the way, it was a 36.5 point spread, Diesel. 36.5 points. Liberty won 48-45 in Waco. So that's 3. There's 2 more. Syracuse over Louisville, 2007. Louisville was favored by 37. The Qs won 38-35. Louisville at the time was 18 in the country. And finally, Stanford over USC, October 6th, 2007. USC was a 39-point favorite.
Wow.
Final score 24-23.
You know what I
Stanford
noticed about all of those? They were from the mid-2000s to the early 2010s. And I don't know how sports betting changed just before that time, but it shocks me that none of these matchups were prior to that. Like, in the 80s, in the 90s. Like, I know there were sports betting in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And then it still wasn't legal to gamble in most states. Was Vegas just not putting out huge lines back then?
It's a good question.
The way they are now. I mean, you'll commonly see I'm just going to make this up, right? An LSU McNeese State football game where the spread will be like 45 points. Yeah. And are you telling me that back then they didn't put these massive 45-point spreads on the board?
That's a good question. And these spreads continue like I don't know that we'll ever see an upset as large as Stanford USC, Diesel. That was the largest upset.
That was 39 points? Is that what you said?
39. It was the largest upset by spread in FBS history at the time. USC was number one. It cost them a shot at their third national title in 5 years. They still finished 11-2 that year and third in the country and won the Rose Bowl. But that was the biggest ever. That's unbelievable.
That's huge.
We've seen a lot of upsets this year, but to see one of that magnitude, NIU Notre Dame was big. You and I watched that game. We were in Clemson when it happened, but it wasn't that big.
Yeah, we were all huddled around a phone trying to watch that game because we didn't have it inside the press box.
And that was 28, by the way.
Yeah.
28 points.
Chris Arnett's taking NC State plus 10 over Cal. Let's see who is it? Wesley was talking some trash about you here just a minute ago.
He's not the only one.
Wesley said it's always a good week for the field when a bunch of people match Cole's pick. Ouch. Was that necessary?
No, he's right. He is
right.
John Dog on the text
You're
line.
not supposed to say that out loud. It's like saying your wife looks fat tonight. You're not supposed to say that out loud.
John Dog also on the text line. If Cole took NC State, it's a shoe-in to lose. They're not wrong. I mean, I'm terrible at this.
We've got an appearance from Cheesehead Corey, who's taking Notre Dame plus Notre Dame against Georgia Tech plus 11.5. And that's one game that I did look at. So Utolo's, it's best to like kind of funnel it down to 2 or 3 games that you think have a good chance of happening, have a good reason why that is, and then just pick one. For example, Notre Dame's playing really good defense right now, but for some reason, Haynes King is just lethal at home in ACC play.
I can't believe you didn't pick that game.
I didn't pick that game because Notre Dame's defense is so good, right?
Good.
And I don't know that this has anything to do with it, but they're not playing in Bobby Dodd Stadium. Like there's just something about a backdrop, like think when you're watching end of the NCAA tournament, March Madness games, they go from playing in basketball arenas to football stadiums. And then the dimensions and the sight lines and all that stuff completely changes. And I got to think, at least for a little while, that kind of messes with the heads of the shooters. It messes with the eyes. So I'm thinking that maybe Haynes King, there's just something about the dimensions of Bobby Dodd Stadium that just clicks in his brain.
That was
and then you take him to Mercedes-Benz and he's in a different spot. Like everything feels normal. Like you're staying in your own apartment. You're going to the same parties, you're whatever, you're going to all the things on campus, but then you're going to play a game off campus. So I'm thinking maybe that just messes with his head a little bit.
So I don't think I told you this yet, but that was my number 2 game. That was the second one. I like very close to picking that.
I really like that game.
I really was, man.
And I didn't end up picking that one. What I picked was
the Sun Devils.
Yeah, I picked Arizona State, the Sun Devils, to get it done against Cincinnati on the road because I was going to pick Arizona State last week, and I think it was worth 6.5 points, and then I changed my mind at the last minute. That one hit. I'm still mad about it.
Oh, that's tough, though.
So I got to make it up. I got to make it up to the Sun Gods.
Yeah, but now you're betting on them hitting twice, 2 weeks in a row. That's tough.
I know, but I genuinely think Arizona State is a better football team than Cincinnati.
My pick, I like looking at betting trends. Wesley and I on the Facebook stream go back and forth a good bit about, sports gambling. I liked my pick of NC State until I looked at the betting trends. So maybe I should have looked at this before I made my pick. To you other Tolos out there that picked NC State, I'm sorry. The Golden Bears Diesel have a 78.9% chance to win this game, according to the money line implied probability. Mm-hmm. Cal has compiled a 4-1-0 record against the spread this year, which is really good. NC State against the spread, which if you don't know Tolos, most of you do, against the spread means you cover the game, cover the spread.
It means you're performing better than what the gambling experts think you will.
NC State, 0-6.
Ouch. Ouch.
They haven't covered once.
If you are, if you're 4-1, 5-1, that means somebody is disrespecting you.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, 4-1's a good record against the spread. Man.
Yeah, that means you are better than what Vegas, whoever is putting these odds together, thinks you are. And they're down on you for whatever reason. There's some sort of bias against you.
Do you see Tolo Yardbird? Is that the first time for Tolo Yardbird, or
I
are they a repeat?
Tolo Yardbird's a new one.
Let's go.
I think he is. So now we're up to 76 picks. Brian Pettit, he makes number 77. He's taking Ball State over Vanderbilt plus 25.5. He says, go big or die.
Tolo Tom, the largest upset in FBS history, is now in 2017. This is on the text line, by the way. Tolo Tom, all caps, as he always.
I told you he types in all caps.
He does.
He speaks in all caps too.
Howard University upset 45-point favorite UNLV 43-40 on September the 4th, 2017. He sends me a link and says all caps, take that, Cole. God. What's the link? I'm scared to click on it. This is not good. I'm scared to click on that link.
I'm glad, Cole, that we don't get pictures on our text line.
That's good. Yes,
because
good.
I know that you degenerate, some of you degenerates, not all of you. John Dog, I'm sure, is a fine, upstanding human being. I'm just calling you out, John Dog, because you just texted in. Some of y'all would send some nasty, nasty stuff, and we don't need that in our lives, okay? We're good boys.
Yeah, and I did want to get to, was it Buckeye Mike? Oh, God, we've had so many texts today. We were talking about upsets not happening as much. Oh, yeah, Buckeye Mike said they played less games and no scholarship limits. That's a good point. I mean, we didn't talk. It's true. No scholarship limits. That obviously impacted it. But, man, just to think about the size, the magnitude of those upsets, it's pretty big, man. Pretty big. Diesel, little daily wires in the very next segment. Mm-hmm. Let's get everybody caught up. And then also coming up in about 20 minutes from now, our high school coaches spotlight with the head football coach of the Greer Yellow Jackets this week, Will Young. We also have welfare check coming up, 5 o'clock, checking on the coaches on the hot seat, and Clay Hendrix, 6 p.m., a ton to get to. Stay tuned, Tolos.
Every day, we try to get you caught up with the topics that you guys care about on this show, which is basically Clemson football, South Carolina football, little bit of women's basketball, South Carolina, little bit of South Carolina men's basketball, tiny bit of baseball, and that's about it. That's really all our Tolos really care about and want to hear about each and every day. But there's a lot more that goes on out there in the sports world, so we tackle that in a segment we call Our Daily Wires. This is the buzz.
And
yeah,
I don't know that we've ever had this happen before. Daily Wires. This was not planned. We did not correlate with Virginia. Breaking news, Diesel. Virginia head basketball coach Tony Bennett is retiring.
Whoa.
One of the best in the business.
Wow.
As of 3 minutes ago, it just popped up on my Twitter feed. This is from On3 Sports. Virginia basketball coach Tony Bennett has announced he's retiring. Wow.
Yeah, not Tony Bennett the singer.
Not Tony Bennett the singer.
Tony Bennett the singer is 96.
Oh, my word.
This Tony Bennett's only 55.
Wow, where'd this come from? Right before the season.
He's got to be taking right before the season.
Wow.
That blows me. Maybe there's some sort of health scare going
I hope
on.
Not, man. He's one of the best.
He's a young dude. He's
one of the
young
best.
Dude. I just hope maybe we'll see him as an analyst or something later on this season, Cole.
Hope so.
Here we go with the Daily Wires, the buzz happening around the sports world. New York Liberty's Sabrina Ionescu hit a 28-foot three-pointer with 1 second last night to win 88-70 to defeat the Minnesota Lynx in Game 3 of the WNBA Finals. New York leads the series 2-1. Liberty need one more win for their first ever WNBA title in franchise history.
Diesel, my channel was already on that channel.
Yeah.
I got home and I saw it.
Wow.
I saw it. It was fantastic. It was
Ionescu, did I say that right? Ionescu?
Yeah, she went to oh crap.
The name sounds familiar.
Oh God, I can't think where she went to college.
A Duke girl?
No, she got a
Tennessee girl?
No, didn't go to Tennessee.
All right, we'll
Oregon.
Oh,
Oregon. She went to Oregon.
Wow, where did you pull that out of?
I knew it was right there. It was right there.
Unbelievable. And sometimes you forget my name. You forget Tolo's
What's your
names. Yeah. The Titans are honoring three-time Pro Bowler safety Jamal Adams' request to be released from his contract. This is a weird one, Cole. He was only on a one-year contract with the Titans anyway, had only played 20 snaps in 3 games this year, and has already asked for a release from his contract, and they gave it to him.
I don't understand that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm reading that.
He played 17 snaps in 1 game this season, and then 3 snaps in the additional 2 games that he played in. So I don't know if it's a playing time issue. I don't know what this might be, but Jamal Adams, I mean, he's 3-time Pro Bowler. He's a good football player.
Yeah, very good.
Chiefs kicker Harrison Butker has formed a political action committee, otherwise known as a PAC, designed to encourage Christians to vote for, quote, traditional values. The Chiefs owner says he's okay with it. We got players on all sides of things politically, and I'm okay with them using their money and their platform for positivity and for good.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much of it on both sides, right?
Yep. The NCAA has issued a new rules interpretation on how to handle a penalty for too many men on the field in the final 2 minutes of either half. This stems from what we saw last weekend in Eugene, Oregon, where Oregon now, according to Dan Lanning, seems like they definitely planned that penalty to happen. They had too many men on the field, which
That's unbelievable,
took time off the clock. There were 10 seconds to play. It took about 4 seconds off the clock, but it only cost them 5 yards to take 4 seconds, which is 4 out of 10, 40% of the game clock away.
Man. I don't like this at all.
Yeah.
Call it the Dan Lanning rule, first of all.
The problem is, Cole, now that it's a rule, they know they're going to see a lot of teams try it. And this is a loophole. It's fair play. That's what they're looking for, and that's what they're trying to protect here is fair play. They don't want coaches using this as a loophole to take time off the clock because every coach would just go do it.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. But it's like Urban Meyer said the other day in an interview. He said, look, as long as I coached, I never thought of that.
Yeah, it's a genius thought.
He said Dan Lanning was playing chess while we were playing checkers. He did.
So here's the ruling, Cole. If the defense has 12 players actively participating in the down
Okay.
The offense can choose, along with a 5-yard penalty, to have the game clock reset to the time that had been displayed before the snap. So you can choose to take the 5 yards and lose the time, or you can choose to get the time back. So that's your choice.
The clock, makes sense.
No time change would be made if there were 12 players on the field, but one of them was attempting to leave the field and did not affect the play. So if it's just the substitution infraction where there's still a player a yard and a half onto the field, but he's running off the field, this rule would not come into play. But if you've got 12 men on the field actively participating in the play as if they're supposed to be out there, that's when there's going to come the opportunity. And it's only going to happen in the last 2 minutes of a half. So if it's a legitimate flub, we made a mistake, we had 12 guys on the field participating in the play, and there's 6 minutes to go, it's just going to be the 5-yard penalty.
So here's the deal. If you're going to create the rule, fine. I understand. I don't like it, but I understand it. At least give Dan Lanning the credit he deserves and call it the Dan Lanning rule.
The Lanning law.
Yeah, something. Come on. That guy's a genius, man.
Well, here's where, Cole. I mean, think about back in the day, all-time great cheaters in sports. I mean, you would hear stories of like Harry Gant in NASCAR filling the roll cage in his car with gasoline so he could get another couple of laps out of the car. Like he would put a bladder inside of the roll cage, and then he would have another 2 gallons of fuel.
Smart.
So as you came, it's not smart. It's cheating.
It's smart.
It's cheating.
That doesn't mean it's not smart.
It's smart as long as you don't get into a fire automobile crash. In which case, if you do, you've now got flammable liquid inside the vehicle, or get caught. So Steve Shaw, the NCAA football secretary rules editor, good God, he's got to have a 5x7 index card to get that job title on his card. He said that, quote, a guiding principle of the NCAA football rules committee is that there should be no benefit when a team commits a penalty.
Yeah.
But my little spider senses go off when he says that, because how often do you see a penalty being called on a team for like delay of game when they're punting the ball? They want the penalty
to back them up.
They want to be backed up.
It happens every week
so that they get a benefit. So Steve Shaw, how do we justify those two rules together?
No, I'm with you. I mean, there are other penalties that are used to benefit teams in other ways
all the time.
Yeah.
Last night, the LA Dodgers defeated the New York Mets 8-0 to take a 2-1 lead in the NLCS. It's funny, Cole. I tweeted right there at the beginning of the game, I think it was 1-0, or it might have still been tied 0-0. I tweeted that baseball at times rivals soccer with its levels of boring.
Oh, God, no way.
Because it was boring.
No way.
And then all of a sudden, this thing got blown wide open, but I left the tweet up because I think a lot of times I still believe what I had to say.
Yeah, look, Walker Buehler last night, granted he only pitched 4 innings. Walker Buehler in those 4 innings was as good as you could ask for. Absolutely fantastic. And then not to mention, Diesel, when the other 4 to 5 pitchers from the Dodgers bullpen come in and just continue to throw strike after strike after strike and sit you down. Look, Severino's a good pitcher for New York, but they could not hold down this lineup last night. At the end of the day, this is what I've said the Dodgers are supposed to do now. They've had the best team in baseball, one of the best teams in baseball, for the last freaking decade, it feels like. What we're seeing this postseason to me feels like what the Dodgers should have been doing for the past 6 years, Diesel. They're beating teams at the plate. They're absolutely holding teams down because of their arms. They've got the best player in baseball. They've got the best pitchers in baseball. They're finally, and I know they won the World Series in 2020, but they're finally doing what the Dodgers have supposed to have been doing all these years.
Well, Cole, we haven't necessarily seen a lot of great head-to-head baseball in this series. The Dodgers won game 1, 9-0. The Mets won game 2, 7-3. Good baseball game there. And then the Dodgers won game 3 last night, 8-0. So we've seen a lot of lopsided games so far in this NLCS. Last night, Shohei Ohtani went 1-for-4 with 1 hit and 3 RBIs. So Ohtani had his big moment last night. Game 3 of the ALCS is today at 5:08. Clark Schmidt will start for the Yankees. Matthew Boyd will start for the Guardians. Game 4 of the NLCS will be played later tonight. First pitch, 8:08. Los Angeles will start Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and New York will start Jose Quintana. Rumors, Cole, are spreading that Jerry Reinsdorf is open to selling the White Sox after a historic losing season where they lost 121 games. Can we get all the Tolos to dig through the couch cushions, find some change, see if we can buy this team?
I would love to, but I don't know that we have enough in the couch cushion to do so. And by the way, you mentioned the Yankees' Clark Schmidt starting tonight, former Gamecock.
Yeah.
So let's see if he can get it done tonight.
And a little bit of news on a former Tiger. Now Jets wide receiver Mike Williams is reportedly eyeing a trade after New York acquired Devontae Adams. The Steelers, Chargers, and Saints are allegedly in the mix to sign him. He is averaging 14.5 yards per carry this season.
It's big time. Not. I'm kidding. Will Young, high school coaches spotlight on Thursdays. We spotlight a local coach right here in the upstate. We talk to the head football coach of the Greer Yellow Jackets, Will Young, next. It's time for our weekly high school coaches spotlight. Every Thursday on the show, we talk to a different high school coach here in the upstate, Spartanburg, Greenville, Anderson, and we bring them on, talk a little football, little X's and O's with them. Always good to talk some football. Today, we're talking to the head football coach of the Greer Yellow Jackets, Coach Will Young. Coach, how are you, man?
Doing good, Cole. How are you?
We are wonderful. We appreciate you hopping on with us, Coach. Look, I want to ask, we know that you're in your 20th season as head coach of the Greer Yellow Jackets. I'm sure you've experienced a lot of different type years, COVID, but the 2-week break that you guys got with the hurricane and having to stop play and stop practice, how does that rank or compare in terms of all the years that you've coached football at the high school level, of just how weird and abnormal that month was for you?
Oh, yeah, well, it's no doubt. I mean, I lived through Hugo and kind of remember that. And I was in high school at the time. And, what these young people have experienced with, once again, you mentioned COVID and then now this, just two things that just don't happen a lot. And it's different for kids. It's different for coaches. Forces you to adjust in ways that have never been done before. But we're fortunate. We're fortunate that all our kids are healthy, everything's doing okay, and there's a lot of people who got it worse off than we did, folks in North Carolina, people down in Florida. So we're thankful to be able to be back playing.
Coach Will Young, head coach of the Greer Yellow Jackets football team, joining us here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Coach, you've had definitely an up and down season, a slow start, but then, man, you've really picked it up over the past 3 weeks, wins against Burns, Berea, and Blue Ridge, where it seems like your defense has really figured something out. Can you kind of put a finger on what happened defensively the past 3 weeks compared to what was happening defensively in games 1, 2, and 3?
Well, obviously the teams that played in games 1, 2, and 3 are really good. We weren't quite at the level we think we are right now. I thought we started turning the corner in the fourth quarter of the Hillcrest game. We had a huge defensive stop in that fourth quarter down on the goal line. And then offensively, we were to march at 99 yards and score. It gave us a chance to win that game. We did not win it, but it gave us a chance to win the game at the end. Just off that kind of changed the momentum of the team for most of the year. We played Burns next, get a win there. I thought we played really solid at Berea. It could have been a letdown game, and it was not. Kids played really well. They played clean. Didn't play quite as good Friday night, even though they won. And I hope a little bit of that had to do with the layoff. But feel like we got a chance to turn the corner. We knew we had a chance to be really good in defensive box, particularly with our defensive line, and we're starting to see some of that pay off now, I think.
Coach, you mentioned the win over Burns, quite the accomplishment. Look, you've been at Greer for 20 years now, and that just hadn't happened. It was a 16-game win streak for the Rebels that came to an end. The domination that they had came to an end. I don't know, Coach, if you plan to retire this year or 20 years from now, but having that notch on your belt had to feel good.
Well, it ain't going to be 20. I can promise you that. Yeah, it was a big win. You got to remember now, too, Cole, that in those 16 years, there's a bunch of other teams that are winless, too.
Yeah.
Against Burns, if they're in that stretch.
Absolutely.
In the 2000s and the mid-2000s. Very, very good football teams came through that program during that time. But very, very happy for our kids and our community on that win. I thought they played extremely well. I thought we out-physicaled them, which was something that maybe in the past we hadn't been able to do. And, hopefully we'll draw on that as the season continues on.
Coach, I know that coaches love to use the phrase, never get too up, never get too down. After 20 years of coaching, how do you impart that message on a player or a unit that does get too up or too down? And at the same time, how do you impart that message onto a parent who maybe sees, I don't know what kind of coach you are, if you're, kind of that hard-nosed coach, or if you're more of a best friend buddy kind of coach, but if you've got a parent who doesn't necessarily see eye to eye with how you're doing things, how do you get them to also trust the process?
Well, I think the biggest thing right now is, we were able to play at a level against Burns, a really high level of football. I thought our kids, and we really, to be honest with you, go back to that same fourth quarter against Hillcrest, where they played at a really high level, And, that continued through Berea. The kids kind of set that standard. There's always been a standard that you got to live by when you're playing at Greer, just simply because of the history and the tradition. I tell the players all the time, it's really the player's job to make the coach have to play them. It doesn't work the other way around. We go to a ball game, we're going to play the best that we think give us the best chance to win a football game. And, if you want to be one of those players, then you have to do something that catches the eye of your position coach and then ultimately, obviously, me. But it's the player's job to determine how much they play, where they play, when they play. And really the coach is just there to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And it's the player's job to bring the pieces to the table.
Coach, I like to, especially at the high school level, ask coaches that we have on about the playmakers for this year's team, for those out there in Spartanburg, Greenville, Anderson, across the state who just don't know much about Greer football. Can you give a quick synopsis on what makes this team go and who those guys are?
Well, I think, we kind of knew going into it, I thought our defensive front would be the core, they're by far the most talented group that we have. You've got Aiden Jones is there. You've got Isaiah McCoy, Peyton Armstrong, Caleb Nelson, Lewis Bussey's there some too as an outside linebacker. But some really, really, really talented football players, big kids that can run. And, last time we had a defensive front that looked anything like that was in 2018. And it was the last time we went to the state championship too. So, we've been real fortunate. We have a quarterback that we benched last year. If you know anything about quarterbacks in 2024, when they get finished, they leave. They go transfer and go somewhere else. This kid didn't do that. He came back to Greer and put in the work and has really, really kind of turned it on. He kind of started turning it on that fourth quarter at Hillcrest, too. A lot happened in that quarter, but he's playing really, really good football for us right now. We've got a really good wide receiver core with Chance Todd, Mikey Williams kind of leading the way there. We've obviously had a transfer of running back leave us, which is unusual. But Nick Holmes has filled in extremely well at running back for us as well. So, we got some pieces. There's no doubt. And, when they play well, they're pretty good.
We're talking with Will Young, Greer Yellow Jackets head football coach. You've been at Greer for 20 years. You played your high school ball at Daniel High School. You've been around upstate high school football for a long time, Coach. What are some of the biggest ways that football in the area has changed over these last 20 plus years, and maybe some ways that it's kind of still the same as it ever was?
Well, obviously from a practice standpoint, it's a lot different. When I played, the game was played in like a 15-yard box, and your job was to pound the guy in front of you and drive him as far as you could, and vice versa for defense. Now it's 53 yards wide and 100 yards long, and you got to defend the whole field. Really tough for defenses in 2024. You don't find many of those defenses anymore that, average giving up 6 points a game. That's just not a thing. And it's because there's so much room to defend now than there was back in the 90s and the 80s, 70s, whatnot. The other big difference I would have to venture would be social media. Just the fact that, there's so much conversation about high school football out on social media. Kids see things sometimes, back in the day we would not like to maybe gripe about a coach or gripe about a particular player. But that's a little different too. So those are probably the two biggest changes I would think. But definitely, it stresses 2024 stresses the defense a whole lot more than it did back in the 90s.
Coach Will Young, Coach, a huge test for your team tomorrow night, an undefeated Seneca team at your place. What do you know about this Seneca football team you have coming to town?
Very good team. It used to be a huge rivalry. I can remember growing up, and their Seneca game was always a big ball game. Oftentimes met in playoffs, and they've got an excellent young quarterback, hit those ball extremely well. Got a really good core of receivers. David Crane's head coach. He used to be an assistant at Greer, and head coach at Greenville. So he and I have known each other for quite some time. Big defensive front, very talented group there. So we got our hands full, and they're going to be confident. They're 6-0. They're playing really good football, really high level football right now, and we'll have to play extremely well to win.
That is head coach Will Young, football coach for the Greer Yellow Jackets. Been around here in the upstate for a long time, doing great things up there at Greer. Coach, good luck this weekend, and we appreciate your time.
Well, I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for what you do for high school football.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Great stuff, man.
Yeah, fantastic interview, man. That is, if I were to go to Central Casting Call and try to find the voice of a high school football coach, that's it.
It is literally the best. Will Young's so good. Look, he's been doing this for a very long time, and have greatly look, the fact that I've been able to cover him in my 12 years, he's been fantastic. He's been fantastic. It's been a lot of fun. And he's a good coach, man. He's a good coach. And you know what? Maybe my favorite comment ever about what do quarterbacks do in 2024 if they're benched? Well, they transfer.
Yeah.
And theirs didn't.
Yeah.
That's so true.
And I didn't get a chance to ask him this question. It kind of popped into my head late, Cole. But I would ask him, like, what's the process like when you're trying to hang on to a guy that you think has the ability to be really good, but he says, Coach, I just want to go somewhere else, and I want to go over there and play now. We're like, well, son, we got a plan for you. We got something we want to do to develop you and make you the quarterback that you need to be here at Greer, for example. That's got to be a tough part of the job.
I'll tell you what I think it comes down to. It's one word. It's parents.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen it. I'm sorry. I think that's the issue. And again, I know that we have a lot of parents out there, but I've seen it, man. I've seen it firsthand.
That's kind of why I asked the question about, getting through to the parents who maybe don't like the way an individual coach, and I'm not calling Coach Hall out for doing that, or Coach Young out for doing that.
Yeah.
But you got to deal with the parents too.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. Welfare check, Diesel. What are we doing? Well, we're seeing who's home, who's been fired. Coach Tony Bennett has retired from college basketball, but on the gridiron, we'll look and see those hot seat coaches, just how hot have they gotten next. Diesel, the music's taking over. You know what that means? When the theme music takes over the wire-to-wire intro,
sometimes the rhythm is going to get you.
Sometimes Diesel is dancing in studio. Now he's standing on the chair with his shirt off. We don't know what's – I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Those on the stream know that's not true. You can watch the show, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. We're live at the Fan Upstate, on Twitter at the Cole Bryson. That's how you can watch Wire to Wire. But on Thursdays at 5 o'clock, we do what we call the welfare check, Diesel, seeing who's home, who's not home. Maybe that hot seat's gotten a little warm for these hot seat coaches. We've got a list, man. We've got a list of coaches because I know you're not going to be here tomorrow. You're leaving me, and I cried all night. I couldn't sleep last night because of it. So we have to get all these coaches cramped in today.
I left a headshot under your pillow, so you're going to have it tomorrow. Just take it with you.
Take it to the ball game.
Stick it to the wall.
Yeah,
pretend like I'm there with you.
That's a great idea. Time to do a welfare check on a scale of 1 to 10. How hot are the seats of these coaches? Tolos, you can play along as well. If you do, text the show, 71307. Start your text with the word fan. Again, 71307. We go through the list and rank the hot seat 1 to 10. Let's start, Diesel, with your alma mater. Sorry, not trying to pick a scab or anything here, but I've got to know because you and I have not discussed it this week. App State, they're just not looking good, to put it quite frank.
No, it's not. Sean Clark inherited a really good football team and program when Eli Drinkwitz left.
Yeah.
And basically every part of this team has fallen off in some way. Yeah, you've had really good players come through since then. A handful of really good players have come through. But also you've had great players who on paper should have been just world beaters, just not really live up to their potential. So I think Sean Clark is at a 6.5.
Oh, wow.
Sean Clark is at a 6.5 because he inherited a program whose identity was pound the football, beat you down on the line of scrimmage, running the football, and don't give up an inch defensively. And now they're giving up
more than an inch.
They're giving up more than an inch. They're giving up a mile on defense. I mean, I was just talking to an alumni buddy of mine. In 2019, fans wanted defensive coordinator Ted Roof's head after he gave up more than 30 points in games 2, 3, and 4 of that football season. Cole, by the end of that season, App ended the season with 3 straight games of giving up fewer than 7 points. And that is the identity that fans demand on defense, and this defense friggin' sucks. It is turned into a good old boys club with a bunch of dudes who have been around for a long, long time that are never going to leave. If things are going great, they were never going to leave and take another job, and it's failed miserably. Sean Clark, 6.5.
And right now, by the way, if you don't follow App State football, they are 2-4 on the season.
You didn't have to say it out loud.
I'm sorry. I'll whisper next. I'll whisper it next time. They're 0-3 in the conference. They have Liberty.
The Liberty game was canceled.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I'm looking wrong.
By this week.
By this week, and then Georgia State the next week, right? So Liberty game won't be made up at all, right?
I think no, that one won't get made up. I don't think Georgia State has ever beaten App State since we've been in the same conference.
Oh, God.
So that could be a straw that breaks the camel's back.
Oh.
You don't lose to Georgia State in the first year of a new head coach there.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you've got –
because remember, Sean Elliott left there to go be position coach at South Carolina.
Correct. You've got Old Dominion after that, Coastal, James Madison. I'm with you. Obviously, I'm not ingrained in App State like you are, but I don't know. Tell me if I'm wrong. It just seems as if the style of players that are being recruited aren't really fitting the system that he's wanting to run. I don't know what the mismatch is, but the puzzle pieces just don't seem to fit.
I mean, offensively, they've gone now to the portal for 2 straight quarterbacks. Joey Aguilar, he set the single season touchdown passing record last year.
Yeah, he did.
Came in, was lightning in a bottle. He was fantastic. Before that, they went to Chase Bryce. Before that, they had multiple quarterbacks in a row that they recruited out of high school that stepped up and earned the job. I don't think quarterback position is the problem. I don't think skill positions are the problem. It's the defense. The defense is friggin' awful.
Yeah.
And they've now had 2 defensive coordinators in a row who were both on staff there previously at some other point and then came back to be on staff. I mean, I think Sean Clark knows how to hire a staff.
It's a good point. It's a good point. Maybe you're right. You know what? 6.5. Look, I defer to you on App State because obviously you're ingrained there. It is 2 and 4 is not where you want to be.
Yeah, the biggest problem
I'll say 6
is that one of the biggest donors, the guy that literally has his name on the press box, loves him.
Oh, Sean?
That's gonna be a problem when your biggest donor loves the head coach that you've got. It's hard to get rid of him.
It is. You know what? That's a big problem. That's a real big problem. Bigger than the name on the press box problem. Next, on the welfare check, where are these coaches sitting on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of their hot seat? We go to the SEC for the next 1, 2, 3, Diesel. We'll start right here in South Carolina. Shane Beamer, where's he at?
Shane Beamer sits right now at a 4.5.
Okay.
1 is no pressure whatsoever.
Right.
10, lightning hot. He's at a 4.5 right now.
Yeah.
He wins on Saturday, beats Oklahoma. That probably comes down to a 3.5 or a 3. He loses to Oklahoma, loses badly. That probably jumps more to like a 5.5. And that's where fans start to lose faith that he is the guy, right? It's going to get tougher and tougher down the stretch. You got a lot of really good football teams ahead of you. And fans will understand if you're losing games down the stretch given the schedule. But they're not going to understand losing this football game.
Matt Kraft on the YouTube stream says, talking about Shane Beamer, hotter than a bicycle seat on a hot summer day. Come on, Matt Kraft. It's not that hot. Diesel says 4.5 for Shane Beamer. It's interesting because
it's on a pendulum, though. The problem is it can swing back and forth
and
in either direction.
That's right. That's why we do this
days.
segment every week, because it literally does swing. They lost to Ole Miss in not so good fashion. They lost to Alabama. You had that game slip away. You had the LSU game slip away. I believe South Carolina fans are questioning whether or not Shane Beamer can get development in season out of a group of guys. I think Shane Beamer's safe. However, I think right now I'm pretty in line with you. I'll go half a point lower, though. I say, no, you know what? Screw it. I'll go an entire point lower. I say 3.5 out of 10. Again, 1 being safe, 10 being very hot. But again, subject to change. You put the asterisk, Diesel. You put subject to change. This could change very quickly, especially if they lose to Oklahoma. But right now, on a scale of 1 to 10, I have Shane Beamer at a 3.5. Next, staying in the SEC. Billy Napier's been on this list every week, deservingly so. Sometimes coaches fall off the list.
Yeah.
Billy Napier, they had a good win a few weeks ago. They actually strung a few wins together, Diesel.
Had a good performance last week
against
Tennessee.
In a loss. So no moral victories on this show. However, you do have to give them credit for showing up and not getting blown out. Where do you have the head ball coach of the Gators at?
I think he's at a 6. I don't know where he was the last time we talked about Billy Napier. I think his seat is cooling ever so slightly. And it's because he's had good performances. Maybe some fans, a minority of fans who have a little bit of common sense will look at the schedule and say, this is brutal tough. And you look like you're very close against some very good football teams. Billy Napier in this situation, Cole, is acquitting himself almost the same way Shane Beamer is. You know, this fan base is so fickle. They're going to come down temperature-wise a little bit slower in Gainesville. But I think with every win and loss, depending on who it is and how they lose or win, there's a lot of movement there.
You know, it's interesting because, like, they have looked formidable, Diesel, and that's kind of throws a wrench in this conversation a little bit. I do like your 6 because at the end of the day, whether or not they perform well, Diesel, I believe you are delaying the inevitable. I really do. I believe you're delaying it. I think he's going to get canned regardless of what happens this season. I will agree with you and also make it a 6. We'll keep it at 6-6 and not put one more there. But I also like Billy Napier at a 6 out of 10 in terms of his hot seat. Staying in the SEC for one more. Sam Pittman, you beat Tennessee. Cools your seat off significantly, right?
Sam Pittman is at a 5.68274.
Oh,
5.68274.
Let me write that down.
Texter says, Upstate, good Lord. You have 10 numbers to choose from. Stop with the 0.5. My God, you're driving me crazy. Pick either 4 or 5 and make a commitment. Jeez.
Jeez? What do you mean, jeez, Texter? I wish I had your problems.
That whole statement, Cole, there was one piece of punctuation. It was after the Lord. Good Lord. Pause. You have 10 numbers to choose from.
Texter not happy.
Texter, don't tell me how to do my job. I won't tell you how to flip burgers.
Oh! Diesel's firing back.
5.62174 for Sam Pittman.
5.612. Is that what you had? Look, I don't know,
Niner.
man.
Did I hear a niner in there?
I like 4. I just give them a ton of credit. Tennessee was talked about as being a national championship contender. Like they were talked about as being the dark horse in the entire country.
Yeah, but Sam Pittman and that Arkansas fan base has to be thinking enough's enough. Like at some point, he's doing like just enough not to get fired.
I know.
Right?
I know.
He's doing just enough. At what point is that exhausting?
You know, it reminds me, the Sam Pittman conversation, Diesel, reminds me of the conversation you and I had all winter and spring this year about Mark Kingston, right? At South Carolina. Exhausted fan base. But what did Mark Kingston do? Mark Kingston always got the baseball team to do just enough to keep his job.
Yeah.
It kind of feels the same way with Sam Pittman in Arkansas. It really does. I haven't been a 4 just because
feels to me that there's a little bit of that going on in Columbia.
Well,
it's still young on Shane Beamer's tenure, but there's a considerable amount of that going on.
No, not Ray Tanner. Let's leave the SEC if you want to. Let's go to Southern Cal, where it's nice. It's in the 70s, usually 71, 72, partly cloudy, and sunny. Lincoln Riley. They have been a disappointment. You know, coming into the season, Diesel, maybe by mistake, I gave Lincoln Riley the benefit of the doubt. I had a little bit of optimism that maybe Lincoln Riley in Southern Cal this year with a good quarterback could have a breakout season. However, they have not done that. They have been disappointing. USC's not a threat. They can't even have a winning record, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
I don't know where we're at. I think his seat's very hot, but I'll let you go first.
Well, with him, it's not an offensive problem. Lincoln Riley's problem has never been offensive. It's been defensive. He can't stop anyone. They gave up 20 points to LSU, 27 points to Michigan, 21 to Wisconsin, not the best Big Ten team, 24 to Minnesota, 33 to Penn State. They can't stop anybody.
Yeah, you're right.
It is his job to find the right defensive coordinator to fix that. By the way, there's a coordinator at App State, I'm sure, who would love the pay raise, Lincoln, if you're looking to hire. So I think Lincoln himself is on a 4 because the industry still looks at Lincoln as this wonderkind.
Okay.
But they got to get a defense figured out. So I don't know that you throw that baby out with the bathwater. So
Jerry.
Lincoln's at a 4. Well, he said dishwater.
Did he really say dishwater?
Don't throw the rag out with the dishwater or something?
Is that what he said?
Yeah, like Jerry Jones does his own dishes.
What is dishes? What Jerry don't?
He just throws them away and buys new china.
I'm going 6.
Really?
6 out of 10 for Lincoln Riley. I think it's getting hot. They're 3-3, man. That's 1-3 in the conference. It's just unacceptable. You lost to Michigan, Minnesota, and Penn. Look, I know they're all close losses, and you were in every game. But come on, man. At some point, you've got to turn the corner. There's no signs right now that Lincoln Riley is turning the corner. Texter says Sean Clark, 7.5, Beamer 5, Napier 5.5. That comes from Gus Mosley. Gus, we
Texter, why don't you
appreciate
go after Gus for using 0.5s? You coming after me?
Diesel's not taking the heat. And by the way, Diesel, we were talking about Shane Beamer a minute ago. Just 1 minute ago, Shane Beamer tweets out with the Palmetto flag emoji, "What a great," all caps, "way to start the weekend," all caps. "Wow, Gamecock football recruiting is," fire emoji, fire emoji, fire emoji times 19 more right now. Hashtag welcome home. Seems as if the Gamecocks might have just got somebody else.
He got himself one.
There
was that player out of Rock Hill that was planning on announcing.
And Jaleel Skinner from, was it Skinner from Riverside as well that we talked about a few days ago?
Michael?
Yeah. Yeah, man, I don't know. We'll see who it is. We'll see. Let's see. Who do we have left? I go 6 out of 10 for Lincoln Riley. Doug Peterson. We talked about Trevor Lawrence. They've been not good. They've sucked. I think Doug Peterson, by the way, I think general manager and the ownership, management and ownership also sucks in Jacksonville. Do I trust that they'll get the right guy there? No. But I think Doug Peterson's at a 6. Diesel, what about you?
Yeah, I got him at a 7. It looks to me, like owners who are bad owners don't realize that they're bad owners. They think they're the smartest guy in the room.
Oh, 100%.
They also, if they're buddies with the GM, they can insulate themselves from the problems.
Sure.
Really, Shad Khan and the GM at Jacksonville are the problems. And we talked about earlier, is Trevor Lawrence a problem? Well, none of those guys are going anywhere. It's where head coaches go to get fired. So
it's not a good
I got him at a 7.
Okay, 2 more.
Yep.
1 more in the NFL, and we'll go back to college for the last one. This one's let's kind of keep our distance. This one kind of hits close to home. I don't want to cry on the radio today. Mike McCarthy.
9.
Oh my God.
9. 9. Jerry seems like he's that close to making another move. Jerry, we've talked about this how many times with him being a fiercely loyal guy to a player. Once he decides that guy is my guy, it takes hell or high water to get him out of that position.
It does. And that's his problem.
Jerry has decided, and he's now paid him, Dak Prescott is his guy. He was like that with Tony Romo. He's now like that with Dak. Mike McCarthy's ass is grass. He's gone. 9.
You know what? It's hard to push back. It's hard to disagree. I think I'm going to 100% agree with you and also go 9. Now, 9's hot. 9's really hot. I thought about going 8. They have a bye, so it might go from a 9 to a 8.9.64444432.
We don't do fractions around here, Cole. We don't do fractions. We don't do decimal points. Texters can't handle that.
And Diesel, not to mention after the bye, you know who the Cowboys play 2 weeks? San Francisco.
Ouch.
So it might go from a 9 to a 10 or an 11, or he's gone. I don't think it'll happen mid-season, but it's definitely hot. 1 more on today's welfare. By the way, Buckeye Mike, I know you guys just lost, but come on, Buckeye Mike chimes in on the text line, Diesel. Ryan Day, 7.5. DC Jim Knowles, 10. OL coach Justin Fry, 10. He's ready to clean house after 1 loss. Buckeye Mike.
There's 130 other programs. I say this all the time. There's 130 some odd programs out there begging Ohio State to be stupid enough to fire Ryan Day. Yeah. And there's a couple that won't admit it, but they really wish they could go after Ryan Day as well. They try to say, "Oh, we're set, right? We're good over here." No, you're not. If you could get Ryan Day, you would back up a Brinks truck to go get him.
Ryan Day's seat's not hot. It's not hot. It's just whatever the temperature is in Ohio right now, that's what it is. It's probably, really, it's cold here. It's probably colder there. It's not hot. Look, he's not even on our list. Last but not least, well, maybe he is the least. Maybe he's the worst on the list right now, Diesel. Sorry to disrespect Mr. Mac Brown like that, but we all know that North Carolina's not good. They're not getting better, and this talk about delaying the inevitable. It seems as if the writing's on the wall for the UNC coach. What do you have him ranked at?
I think Mac Brown sits at an 8 at the moment. Things are bad. Things are really bad in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Mac Brown was supposed to be brought in as this savior. He's going to go out on top, right? He was going to bring UNC football back to prominence and then hand it off to the next guy. And that has not been the case. Things are not going well over the last couple of seasons, right? UNC has taken some head-scratching losses. So Mac is at an 8, and I would be floored if he came back for the 2025 season.
No, there's no way he comes back. There's no way. There's absolutely no way. I also, Diesel, have him at a – actually, you know what? I'm going to go 7. No. I'm going to go 8 with you. I like 8. I hate to agree with you on the last two, but I'll go 8 for Mac Brown. The writing's on the wall, in my opinion. He is gone. Diesel, Shane Beamer just retweeted the news, the answer that we were looking for. Breaking news. Xavion Currents, 2026 DB wide receiver athlete out of South Point, Rock Hill, who we talked about. He is not 100% committed on Twitter as of 1 minute ago. He is, what is the number? 100,000,000. That's a lot of zeros. He's 1,000,000,000,000% committed. I'm going to hold him to that and say, okay, let's just make sure you don't transfer because you just said you were a billion% committed. Committed to what? South Carolina or the money? Anyways, South Carolina just landed a big one, a big fish, and he decommitted, right? I believe we talked about that not long ago that he decommitted. So South Carolina and Shane Beamer, the Gamecocks, man, they're recruiting well. They are recruiting well, so you got to hand it to them. But that is our welfare check, and if Shane Beamer continues to recruit like that, Diesel, and win some games that they're supposed to win, maybe he'll come off the list.
Cole, when we come back, we're down now to a handful of big market teams and one little bitty small market team with a teeny tiny little payroll left in Major League Baseball. I don't have a dog in the fight, but who should you be rooting for to go out and win the whole thing in the World Series? What does it represent if one of the big market teams makes it happen for themselves this year? That's coming up next on the Fan Upstate. Oh, we're coming down to the wire. 4 teams left. And that's just a reaction from you. But I appreciate you being Johnny on the spot with that. No, we're coming down the wire in the ALCS and NLCS. We got 3 big market teams still in this one, and 1 much smaller market, 2 New York City teams, and of course the Dodgers of Los Angeles. Now, I mean, I know Cleveland is not a tiny market, but compared to New York and compared to LA, it is. But they are tiny, Cole, when it comes to spending and the payrolls that they have in Major League Baseball. Highest payroll in 2024, New York Mets, $305 million. New York Yankees, number 2 with $303 million. The LA Dodgers, number 3 with $249 million. And then it's a long way down until you get to the Cleveland Guardians. So here's what we have. We have the 3 highest payrolls in Major League Baseball, and the plucky come from behind Cleveland Guardians, who have the 28th highest payroll, or in other words, the 3rd lowest payroll in Major League Baseball at $93.3 million, Cole.
That's a lot of money.
Is whoever can spend the most money what we really want Major League Baseball to be?
Well,
I mean, I know it's great for the ratings right now. People are watching it, and it's kind of the way it's always been, right? The Yankees have always had one of the, if not the highest payroll in Major League Baseball year in and year out. They have the money. They can afford to outspend everyone else. They basically use the entire league as the farm system. Like, hey, we like this guy over there at the this guy that's doing it over there in Oakland. Hey, we like that guy who's doing it over there in Kansas City. Hey, we like that guy that's doing it down there in Texas. Let's just throw a lot of money at him.
Well, here, to answer your question, I'll say I like it because it's not always this way. It's not always this way. My biggest gripe with the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Mets, I mean, you can break them down one by one. We could spend 30 minutes on each, but you talk about the Mets. Let's start with them because they have the highest. The Mets and the collapse that the Mets have had over the last decade, the postseason collapse that you'll see year after year proves that the highest payroll doesn't always do it.
Yeah.
The Yankees have not won a World Series since 2009. They have just missed the mark on everyone. They fired managers that hadn't got them over the hump. And then the Dodgers, even though they did win the World Series in 2020, they have not won like you would expect them to have won because they've had the best roster in baseball for a near decade.
I mean, it proves that, just by paying the most doesn't mean that you're going to have the best baseball team. You've got talent on your team, but of course it's always the Jimmies and the Joes, right? It's not the X's and the O's. Yeah. It's not the payroll. It's not the bottom line of the sheet that decides who goes out and wins the World Series. And in case anybody's wondering, the Atlanta Braves had the 8th highest payroll in Major League Baseball, $217 million. Obviously, when you lose so much off of your team, that really hampers your ability. So the Braves should have been contenders this year, Cole. But I beg the question, and before we actually get to my question, explain to me how the White Sox had a middle of the Major League Baseball salary cap, but were historically bad.
Always
121 losses, 15th out of 30, dead in the middle.
Same reason Cowboys paid Dak Prescott $8 billion.
Because you got stupid people throwing around money, right?
Yeah. White Sox have had good players.
If you've got smart GMs and owners throwing around a lot of money, it pretty much guarantees you a good chance to go win. Yeah. But if you've got stupid owners and GMs throwing around a lot of money, well, now you're in a situation where you have the 15th highest payroll. You should have been a 500 baseball club. Instead, you had the worst record of all time in Major League Baseball.
And Chicago's, on top of that, Chicago's had some not so good trades. I mean, they're not good, but they've had good players over the years that go to other teams.
Bad decisions.
So
here's what I want to debate in this segment here, Cole. If we had to choose for all U.S. sports going to a more egalitarian salary cap model where everybody has the same amount they can pay, or all U.S. sports going to the elitist model which means you can pay whatever you want to pay. Which would you choose?
God.
Which would you choose? So what that would mean is, and by the way, there's no loopholes here. Like I know that Major League Baseball has the luxury tax, so they have a salary cap, but that salary cap doesn't actually mean anything. You can go over it, then you just got to pay some money back. And I don't know. Explain to me, because I genuinely don't know the inner workings of Major League Baseball and salary caps. Where does that extra money go? Like if they have to pay a penalty back to Major League Baseball, where does it go?
Well, I don't know exactly where it goes, but I'll tell you this: I love it. I love more than I do the NFL.
Okay.
I really do.
So they have a salary cap with a luxury tax. The NBA essentially has the same structure. They have a salary cap, but you can go over it. You just got to pay a penalty back to the league, which really just means they've just added an extra cost of doing business.
Sure.
Like if you want to be an elite team, you have to spend over that cap, and then you have to pay a penalty back to the league, because if you don't stand a chance to compete in this thing. So the question is, would we rather have Major League Baseball and the NBA adopt hard salary caps and actually stick to them, and then we would have to establish a hard salary cap for college football, thus spreading funding and talent around more equally among the programs who compete in those sports? Or, Cole, would you rather have the NFL, WNBA, MLS, all those teams adopt a structure where the richest teams and the richest owners could spend whatever they wanted, and the little guy never stands a chance?
Wow. This is loaded.
Yeah. I know what we've got in Major League Baseball and the NBA is kind of a hybrid system, and that's really and college football has no structure whatsoever right now. So you'd actually have to establish something for college football and keep it from being sued into oblivion.
When you say elitist model, you mean like what the MLB does?
Yeah. The elitist model, which means if you have an owner with the most money, you can just go out and spend whatever you want.
It might surprise you, but I like it. I like that model better. I do, because like at the end of the day, the reason that the biggest gripe I have with a salary cap is it gives ownership the biggest and you're getting me started on something you have no idea. It gives ownership the biggest freaking cop-out BS excuse ever. I mean, ever. I hate hearing from my owner and from my owner's son about why the Cowboys can't go spend money because of the salary cap. We don't have the money. It's an excuse.
It certainly slows things down. And I understand the frustration. The NFL, the hard salary cap means that if you need to go out and rebuild your team, or if you think you're close and you're like a piece or two away, sorry, Charlie, you can't go out there and get them. You got to pull off some crazy trade to go get somebody and give up maybe a lot in the future to go get that guy that you need. You know, that's what you have to do in the NFL. It slows things down probably to a more glacial pace. So Cole, imagine for a moment here, which the luxury tax in Major League Baseball and the NBA essentially attempts to create a more egalitarian system based on what you do with the money that they are being penalized, right? Is the league using that money to promote itself? In which case the league wins. The league wants you to spend more money than you're supposed to spend, because then they get some kickbacks off of that. Or, Cole, imagine a system where college football, if Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, Southern Cal, and Oregon could literally go out and spend $1 billion on their roster.
Yeah.
Well, the salary cap's $100 million, and you've now gone $900 million. I'm just making these numbers up, okay? Just for the sake of an argument. Now you got to pay a luxury tax back to the NCAA or whatever governing structure you have, and that money then gets trickled down to other schools. So imagine Alabama's luxury tax paying for UAB. Imagine Alabama's luxury tax paying for Troy and for Georgia Southern. Georgia's luxury, and it doesn't have to be in a state-by-state model, but it can get split up evenly. Everybody that goes over the luxury tax and over the salary cap for your NIL, that money then has to go back to the collective pool of money that then gets split among the teams who don't go over.
So I don't hate it. Here's my biggest pushback that I've always had, Diesel, is when the CBT was implemented in like the 90s in Major League Baseball to allow teams with more money to go be the big money spenders. Everybody thought and talked about in the early 2000s, this is the worst thing in the world. Only the big teams with all the money are going to win. However, Diesel, let's go back and look. From today to 1997, when the CBT and the luxury tax was implemented in the Major League Baseball system, there's been more parity and competitive balance in baseball. Yeah, guys go on runs and teams have runs, and like you can't just, like the Dodgers are a great example. When you have that much talent, you can't just not win. But there's been a ton of competitive balance for crying out loud. The Texas Rangers last season, Diesel, who the season before were one of the worst teams in the AL, one of the worst teams in the AL, go out, they get Bruce Bochy, they don't have the highest payroll, and guess what they do in Bruce Bochy's first year? They go and win the World Series. There's great competitive balance, and that's why I like it.
So I just Googled, what does the NBA do with the luxury tax money? Half of it is shared, evenly distributed to all teams that are below the luxury tax threshold. And I didn't know this. So when I was making up a scenario for college football, I didn't realize that I was doing exactly this. So half of it goes to the teams that are below the salary cap. The other half is used to fund the NBA's revenue sharing program. So imagine for a minute, Cole, that you get to tell Georgia and Alabama and LSU and all those teams, hey, you can go out and spend whatever you want. But if you go over this set dollar figure, that comes back to us. And then you're now funding the other programs.
To me, that makes sense.
You're now funding. So I think you've just changed my mind. I think you've just sold me, Cole, on a luxury tax structure for college football. Okay. So now all of a sudden, all the Middle Tennessee states and the Northern Illinois, they can go pay their revenue sharing to their players because Alabama chose to go over their luxury tax, because Ohio State chose to go over their luxury tax.
Brandon Gosnell on the Facebook stream says salary cap keeps the bad teams down and
dependent.
Dependent
on
old
free agents.
Oh, okay. He said old free agents. I was like, what are you talking about, old free agents?
Yeah, you got to.
Sorry there, Brendan. Just a little typo. Forrest says, I don't think it should matter how much a team spends. It's their money. Joey says, how much do you put a cap on sponsorship deals that have nothing to do with the schools? T-Ray, a hard salary cap would even the field out and keep the huge paychecks under control, but an earnings cap would have to be put on ownership. Diesel, Tuesday we did the Tolo takeover. I did not get to gripe. I'm going to gripe next. Ty in Taylor's chimes in on the text line, which you can do 71307. Start your text with the word fan. Do you think the luxury tax would have the wealthy schools start putting money in McDonald's bags again to adhere to the tax ceiling? You got to do what you got to do, right?
That's an interesting question. If the salary was $2 million and you're sitting at $2 million and at $2.25 million, you got to figure out a way to shave $250,000 off of what the NCAA knows that you're spending.
Yeah. And
so now you're going to take that $250K, start sewing it into some couch cushions and start furnishing dorm rooms.
Yeah. And Big Macs.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have the Big Macs. I mean, you got to. Diesel, Tuesdays we do the not the 5 o'clock fight. That's on Wednesdays. Thank you very much. On Tuesdays, we do what is the Tolo Takeover, right? And the Tolo Takeover every Tuesday at 5 p.m. It's continuing to grow more and more. It's becoming just the best segment ever. And you had a gripe about pet insurance.
Insurance companies, just in general, insurance companies.
Just
but
in general,
pet insurance.
Well, that's right, because you're dealing with the pet insurance. I had a gripe on Tuesday, and then we'll get to Tom, who wants to chime in on the renewal by Anderson to the Carolinas fan phone. Diesel, I had a gripe as well, and I didn't I did not get to it. Say that 2 times.
Did not get to it.
That's right. On Tuesday, because our Tolos were fantastic, right? We had 6 or 7 calls, I believe, that
lined up.
They were lined up outside the building. But I'll tell you what just drives me crazy, man. And I put this on the rundown because I want to hear from our Tolos on which side of the coin they find themselves on. When I go from here to my house, it's about 35, 40 minutes, depending on traffic, which I live in Boiling Springs. When I go from my house to somewhere that's 2 to 3 minutes down the road, I'm going to do the same thing regardless of the distance of the trip. Doesn't matter if I'm going 5 minutes down the road or if I'm going to Arkansas to duck hunt. I'm going to use my GPS. Why do I use my GPS even if I know where I'm going? Well, I don't want to be caught in a freaking wreck and sit there for 3 hours. My biggest gripe, and I did this weekend, is riding on Saturday. Riding with people who, let's say we're going to go from one side of town to the other or from Spartanburg to Greenville and vice versa. They get in the car and they say, wonder if we should go around this way and get on this road and then come back. And I'm thinking the whole time, use that freaking thing on your phone called a GPS and you won't have to worry about which way to go. It drives me nuts. When a buddy of mine the other day, I sat in traffic for 3 hours. Well, why didn't you get off earlier? Well, I didn't know the wreck was there. Well, guess what? They make a freaking, on your iPhone, they make something called Maps. Use it. It drives me crazy when people don't use their GPS and I have to be the passenger.
Here's the problem, Cole. I don't trust my GPS anymore.
Ah,
I don't. I do turn it on if I'm going up the highway, right? Because I want to know if I need to get off somewhere. The problem with GPS is sometimes it'll tell you to go a certain way, and it doesn't tell you why. Like if it said, hey, there's an accident ahead at mile marker 75, you should take this exit instead. That would be fine. Instead, it just silently says rerouting. Well, how do I know? Because how many times have you been in a car, Cole, where GPS will just take you a funky way for seemingly no reason at all? Or like there's a way, like it's a 50-50 split. You're going to one place and you could go this way and it's going to take you 12 minutes. You go that way, it's going to take you 13 minutes, but it always takes you the 12-minute way, even if that's the pain in the ass with all the stoplights.
I'm telling you, man, it drives me crazy. Before we hit a break, we do have about 60 seconds for Tom. And by the way, Tom, I want to let you know one of our texters, our Tolos on the text line, Fat Paid, chimes in and says, I think we're getting too much, Tom. He should only be allowed to be on when South Carolina wins.
Fat Paid, you are a smelly pirate hooker. Don't say those things.
He says, yes, that'll take care of it, suggesting that Tom will never come on because South Carolina never wins. How do you feel about that, Tom?
You know what? Well, Gamecock's going to win on Saturday. You can write it down, mark it up, whatever you want to do. But I got one thing I want to gripe about.
Okay.
Is these people who complain about NIL's ruining college sports and the transfer portal is ruining college sports. They don't know what they're talking about, and it drives me crazy. I about got told to leave work today over this crap. So, for instance, today, obviously, Tony Bennett decided to retire 2 weeks before the season starts. How is that fair to the athletes at the University of Virginia that their head coach 2 weeks before the season starts says, hey, bye, I'm gone. You go do your own thing. Like, people want to complain about the players in the transfer portal. What they don't get is coaches have free will to do whatever they want, and it affects the college athletes.
Thanks, Tom. We've got to run, Tom. We appreciate the call. He's livid, Diesel.
He's fired up. He's fired up, but that's an argument we've been hearing now for years, Tom. We've been hearing that argument for years. I want to hear something different when it comes to college athletics and the transfer portal. Give me another reason. Give me an actual good reason. Give me a good reason. When we come back, we talked to Clay Hendrix, head football coach of the Furman Paladins, who are playing their homecoming game this weekend against Western Carolina. We'll hear from Clay next. This weekend, it is homecoming in Travelers Rest. Your Furman Paladins hosting the Western Carolina Catamounts Saturday at 2 o'clock. To talk about it, we bring on head football coach of the Furman Paladins, Clay Hendrix. Each and every week, we get a chance to talk to him on this show. Absolutely fantastic guest, Coach. We love having you on week in and week out. I'm going to ask you the big question right out of the gate. Western Carolina, they have a heck of a quarterback in Gonzalez. He seems to really love targeting A.J. Colombo far more than anyone else. Can you contain him and force Gonzalez to find his other targets?
Well, I certainly hope we can. They're a little different team than they were maybe a year ago. Changing coordinator, even though they're doing a lot of the same things. Probably had a few more different guys they went to a little bit more a year ago. I don't know. I think you got to pay attention where Colombo is because he's certainly a really good player. Gonzalez can hurt you with his feet. A few design runs, but I think for us it's going to be really more about can we prevent the run or limit their running game, and then which will give us a chance to get after him, which we did a good job of a year ago. But it'll certainly be a challenge for us.
Coach, we talk to you every single Thursday, but something that you said after the loss to Ole Miss that stuck with me that I wanted to ask you about after this past Saturday's loss to Chattanooga, 41-10. We talked about how with the Ole Miss game, you really couldn't take much from it. You just really didn't know where your team was. And I remember you several weeks in a row saying you just didn't know where your team was after that Ole Miss game. What can you take now from a in-conference SoCon loss to Chattanooga?
Well, I don't know. I felt like the score wasn't indicative of they played significantly better than we did, and that was the difference. But just, I think the biggest thing for us, if we can take care of the football, I think our 3 FCS losses, we've had 12 turnovers. And it's certainly hard to win any game, if you do that. But I just, I know we're getting better. We're it's a little bit of a broken record. I looked up at times the other day, and all 5 skill guys on offense were freshmen. Trey certainly as a young quarterback's doing some really good things. But I think if we can, we've shown if we can take care of the ball, it's going to give us a little better chance. We keep putting our defense in some bad spots. I just don't think we're that far from having a chance to be a pretty good team. We're not there right now, and we're certainly a work in progress. But I think we finally got the right, people in the right places. I think we've got to, quarterback-wise, I think, one of the things, for instance, this week's been we got to take a little bit off him. I think we've been maybe asking a little bit too much of him, even mentally. He's a really bright kid. Which I think will get everybody playing a little faster. And that's kind of been the focus of the week.
Coach, can you go through some of the actionable steps that you and your staff are taking to limit those penalties and limit those mistakes? For example, we heard a few weeks ago down in Columbia, Shane Beamer's taping tennis balls to his offensive lineman's hands so that they can't grab a hold of jerseys and can't hold. So give our audience a little idea of what exactly you're doing to prevent some of these penalties or to coach away from that.
Well, I actually think we've done a pretty good job with the penalties. I think we had 4 penalties last week, and I probably had a problem with most of them that got called. I think we had 4 last week. We had, I think, 1 offensive penalty the week before, which took away a touchdown, but also I was told by the conference it shouldn't have been a penalty. So I think we've done a pretty good job with that. I think it's just been the turnovers. I think when you're as young as we are in some places, we've been harping so much on just attention to detail and assignment wise. And yeah, certainly that's a huge part of what we do. But I think what we've got to do is get back to, playing a little bit what this program's been built on is playing with physicality and playing with great, great effort. I don't think effort's been bad, but it needs to be it needs to be ratcheted up a bit. And so that's kind of been our focus. And again, the turnover thing, we had 5 Saturday, and I don't know if you saw our game, but 2 of them weren't interceptions, and I got told that, which doesn't do me a lot of good right now. But we still would have had 3.
Wow.
We got credit with 5, which is still way too many. And I just, I think for the quarterback, and a lot of them have come from the quarterback position. So it's, again, trying to take a little bit off his plate, certainly needing to run the ball better. which I think helps everybody. I don't care what team you play for. If you do that, that helps your offense, that helps your defense, that helps your team. So, again, it's been baby steps, but if we can clean up the turnover aspect of it, we're certainly going to give ourselves a lot better chance to be successful.
Coach, when it comes to the penalties and turnovers in the game that ended up not being penalties and turnovers that you just talked about, is that something in real time as the coach you could tell was incorrect on the field on Saturday?
Yeah, one of them, I don't know if anybody saw it. They threw a pass that got batted and it bounced off the ground to the defensive lineman, and every official froze, and the kid ran it back 60 yards for a touchdown. I've never seen it happen before. Replay didn't fix it. In fact, I was told it was confirmed.
Wow.
Then I was told this week it wasn't confirmed. You know, one of them was at one point it was a 10-3 game in the second quarter. So, you know, but right now we just got to find a way to create our own breaks. We're not getting a whole lot of them. We're not helping ourselves enough. And so I think sometimes when you have just the injuries and it's that, you know, they kind of compound each other. So we've got to be the ones to kind of right the ship, so to speak. And, you know, I go through the process, but nothing's going to change other than addressing it. And I've kind of purposely not tried to address a bunch of that this year, but I finally got to the point the last couple of weeks where I've kind of made my feelings known, and hopefully it'll help. We'll see.
Head coach of the Furman Paladin football team, Clay Hendrix, joins us on the phone here on the Fan Upstate. Coach, by the way, I'll be at your game on Saturday, so maybe I can bring a little good mojo, a little good juju my way. But I wanted to get your thoughts on something that's just sweeping the college football world. That's just kind of come down in the last 36 hours or so. Your thoughts overall on the penalty that Oregon committed at the end of the game to run 4 seconds off the clock there? Do you consider that a creative bending of the rules? Do you consider that kind of dirty pool? And what do you think of the NCAA's new ruling that inside of 2 minutes and a half, coaches would have the option to take the yards or get the time back?
Yeah, I mean, I think he certainly just did a good job of using the rules to his benefit. You know, which it's kind of like in recruiting. You know, there's lots of the major schools always found ways to get around rules, and so now they got to create new rules. And I think that continues on in our game a little bit. I didn't really have I mean, like I said, it was within what he was allowed to do. And I mean, I'm just thankful they at least came back and responded. You know, sometimes it's kind of interesting what you got to do to get them to respond to something. I'd be much more happy if I understood what holding was and a few other things in our game. We seem to worry about other stuff. And, you know, we changed, you know, we took out the low block rule, which I never understood. And, I don't know, a lot of times some of these are politically correct type decisions, but certainly that one had to be addressed, and I think they addressed it the proper way.
Coach, just a few moments ago, you said we finally got the right pieces in the right place. Can you elaborate on that in terms of if that was something that you guys have made adjustments on in season?
Well, I mean, the challenge for us was, you know, we were a young football team. We had 41 seniors a year ago coming into the season, so we were young and inexperienced. And they've just kind of been wiped out from an injury standpoint. You know, we've had 13 surgeries. There's probably 4 or 5 more that aren't playing non-surgical type stuff. So, you know, we got a lot younger a lot sooner. You know, you try to navigate these freshmen a little bit. I mean, we're certainly the eligibility. You know, we've been a program around here that's been built on developing players, trying to redshirt as many guys as we can. You don't want to burn a year on a kid. You know, we tried to use the 4-game rule as well as we can, but I think last year we played 3 freshmen. The year before we played 2. I think we've already burned maybe 9 or 10 freshmen this year. And we've got some others we're plugging in. Maybe we plug them in a week or 2 in a special team just to buy us a little bit of depth in those spots. So that's kind of been the challenges. And I think getting those right guys on the field, they're a talented group, you know, but, you know, we still, you know, we're going to make a lot of those mistakes. I don't know if there's a fast way to make anybody grow up. You know, you wish you could fast forward it, but it's a process. You know, I think the process for us is just continuing to practice well. I've been really pleased with how we've practiced. You know, we just hadn't carried it over to the game, which is obviously the key as well as I'd like. And but I don't know. I really enjoyed this group of kids, and our staff, it's the same guys that have been coaching them up when we've had really good teams. And, I'm trusting that process. I'm trying to enjoy each day. And, and again, it's going to turn. It's going to turn for us. We just got to keep working.
Furman homecoming is Saturday, facing Western Carolina. Coach, we've been giving away tickets to that game, and the phone lines absolutely light up every time we've been giving those tickets away. To our listeners, you're going to have another chance tomorrow morning on the Rob Brown Show, your last chance to win tickets to that game. But Coach, not to make you feel old here, but yesterday marked a big-time anniversary for Furman football. 42 years ago, Furman went on the road to beat South Carolina in Columbia 28-23. I believe you were a freshman on that team, if I'm not wrong. What do you remember about that game? And, what experience there do you still hold on to and maybe impart a lesson onto your players?
Well, I was a freshman on that team. I did not play in that game, but, I don't know. That certainly was a great time. It really started, those 4 years we won in Columbia, we won in Atlanta against Georgia Tech, and then we won back-to-back years in NC State, I think, the 4 years I was here. But, yeah, what a great day for Furman football. And I know Coach Sheridan at the time was a South Carolina grad. So I think that was a great – it really kind of felt like we kind of dominated the football game. In fact, I think it was 28-23 maybe was the final, and I think they scored in the last 10 seconds just to cut it to that margin. But, no, Stanford Jennings had a great day. Anybody knows anything about Furman football knows Stanford Jennings. And Ernest Gibson, another great player, blocked the punt, I think, for a touchdown. And, that was a great day for the Paladins.
Coach, when you look at the opponent that we've talked about a little bit already for the homecoming Paladins on Saturday, Western Carolina, and look at their last few opponents, what have you noticed after that bye week when they played Wofford in the Citadel and were able to come out on top? What have you noticed their MO to be in the last two games?
Well, I think they're like a number of teams in our league. They played a really tough schedule that was kind of front-end loaded. They went out to Montana. They went to Raleigh, played NC State. I think a game they lost, the quarterback threw 4 picks, so I know what that's like. But, I just think they just kind of keep getting a little better. I mean, obviously the quarterback he's the guy that drives them. I guess now third year. I think he was a part-time starter maybe 2 years ago. But they're getting better. Kerwin Bell's been a heck of an offensive coach everywhere he's ever been. I think we went into that game a year ago in Cullowhee, and I think they were saying it's the biggest game in 40 years in Cullowhee, and I think they were leading the country in total offense. Great game. We were fortunate to win. And new defense coordinator, they're playing, they've always been talented. They're still talented. Seem to be, I think he has provided them a little spark defensively. So, we'll certainly have our work cut out for us. They won a couple of close conference games, and I think anytime you win, it helps, especially when you conference games, you win a close game. And so they're just up the road. I'm sure they'll have a great crowd here, and should be a heck of a day. It's supposed to be a beautiful day here.
Yeah, Coach, I know I'm excited to be there. I don't know which color of purple I'm going to be pulling for. As an App State grad, it's going to be tough on me. I'm going to have to make a hard decision. But I'm going to be on the right side of the field for you again. So I'm going to put the good energy your direction. I just wonder.
I didn't think there was an Appalachian State grad that could pull for Western Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, those old rivalries die hard, Coach. It's been
no doubt.
It's been a couple of years since I've been in Furman's football stadium, as a matter of fact. So at least for a football game. So I'm going to be on the right side of the field this time. I can promise you that. Is there any little bit of game day prep that you did as a younger coach that now that you've been in this game for quite a while, you look back on and you say, that might have been a little crazy what I used to do back then?
I think I'm pretty kind of a even keel kind of guy. I know I have lots of friends that do that. And, you guys all know Sean Elliott. I've known Sean for a long time, and I don't think I probably could do what he does. I probably wouldn't be able to hold up.
You've never headbutted a player wearing a helmet?
No, I tried to. No, I hadn't wanted to do that. If I did, I wanted to make sure I had a helmet on.
That's right.
I don't know. I just, I was an offensive line coach for for about almost 30 years before I became a head coach. And so I think I was too worried about just trying to make sure I had my guys ready to go. But I don't know. Like I said, we're certainly excited to be here Saturday. And I told our guys, really the only thing you're guaranteed, the way our schedule was set up, we've only got 2 more home games that were guaranteed. And then I reminded them that, and this year they're not even guaranteed because we lost one to the Hurricane. So, this is a place we've been really good for lots of years. And, hopefully we'll be that way Saturday.
Coach, we so much appreciate your time. Best of luck on Saturday, and we will talk to you next week.
That would be great. It's always great being with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
Absolutely. That's Coach Clay Hendrix, the head football coach of the Furman Paladins. It's going to be a big one, man. They need this one. They talking about a must-win to open the show, Diesel.
Yeah.
With the Gamecocks. Furman needs this one on Saturday.
Yeah, there's
Western's hot.
It's a momentum game for the rest of the season. It feels like the results of this one could turn the tide either way. It could be a spark that gets Furman back to back to being a good football team this year. Texter says, since when did Furman move to Travelers Rest? Texter, everybody knows that Furman really is halfway between Greenville and Travelers Rest. As a matter of fact, it's Greenville, and then it's an unincorporated part of town, and then Furman, and then Travelers Rest. So you can try to parse words with me about Greenville or TR all you want to, but it's way closer to TR. It butts right up against TR. So stop it. Stop it, would you?
Go at him, Diesel. Go at him, man. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I like it.
You got to get through Cherrydale. You got to go Greenville, Cherrydale, then Furman and Travelers Rest. So stop with me.
I'm with you. Look, don't come at Diesel. If you come at Diesel, he's going to come right back.
I will come back at you like a spider monkey.
I want to ask a question, Diesel, to Clemson fans. I put this on Facebook, Fan Upstate, earlier today. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are Clemson fans that you're going to beat your rival? I know you always beat your rival. It hasn't been a rivalry. But a few weeks ago, Diesel, actually, I believe it was last week, we had the conversation on if the season ended today, if they played today, who we thought would win between South Carolina and Clemson, who we thought might have the advantage. I want to ask Clemson fans just how confident they are next. Diesel, you got to turn your mic on.
I'm gonna start charging you $1 every time you do that.
You'd get
I'd be rich.
You'd be pretty wealthy over
rich.
there.
It's called a bonus.
I'm telling you, I've been averaging like twice a show lately, which isn't good, but for whatever reason, I start talking before I turn my mic on. So I'll try to do the opposite next time. Diesel, nowadays fans are so soft. People are so soft.
Yeah.
You can't even post a question. You can't even ask a question on Facebook like I did today 5 hours ago at the Fan Upstate. If you don't like us or follow us on Facebook, if you haven't done so yet, go to facebook.com/thefanupstate. Give us a follow and a like. Diesel, all I did was post a simple question today on Facebook, and for the most part, we had 21 or so comments. For the most part, people could answer the question, like normal people. However, one of the people, Dale, who commented on the Facebook post, they just got their panties in a wad today for whatever reason. And their comment, here's what Dale said. This radio station just loves to poke fun or to poke the fire to keep the rivals hot. When they crank up, I turn the channel. Well, Dale, you know what? If you can't answer a simple question, there's no poking the fire, whatever that means. I think you meant poking the bear. But I asked Clemson fans, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you right now that Clemson will beat South Carolina in November? For the most part, everyone answered the question. I ask you, the Tolos, that question as well. 71307. Start your text with the word fan. Phone lines are also open. 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663. Diesel, is it too much just to ask a question nowadays for Clemson fans? I mean, is that too much?
No, we live in a Charmin society.
Charmin says, I like that.
Yeah, Charmin society. We're soft, man. It was, as a matter of fact, Cole, I saw this is fantastic. Josh Pate on his show predicted that Arkansas would upset LSU this weekend.
Okay.
Some LSU fans got a hold of that, posted it on their internal message boards, and they created an AI image of Josh holding two little pigs, one under each arm, sprinting away, like sprinting down a path with 4 tigers on his rear end, trying to chase him down. And I had to look at this photo very discerningly to figure out if it was fake or if it was real. Where I could really tell, Cole, it was the extreme lack of calf muscle definition for Josh Pate. Josh Pate is stacked individual, and his calves are way more developed than that. But you got somebody making a prediction of what he thinks could happen in this football game based on the knowledge that he has. And, Josh is quite good at the upset picks challenge. So he seems to have some good intel and some good instincts on when a team is ripe for an upset. And then you just get blasted. You get told that you're an idiot. You get told that you're a shill. You probably get some hate mail in your DMs. That's just how people are these days, right?
Soft.
We would much rather just fire back at you and say all these horrible things and nasty things than ask, hey, why is it that you believe what you believe? Why do you think it's going to go this way? And let me explain to you calmly and rationally why I believe this thing is going to go the other way, why I think that you're wrong. We've lost our ability to debate. If somebody says one thing that we don't like, it's, I'm going to call you a horrible person, an R word, and this word, that word, whatever it is, right? We've lost our ability to see nuance and to debate. But if you asked Clemson fans how they feel going, if they were playing South Carolina this weekend, how they would feel going into the game, their confidence level, I would probably say that the average confidence level feels around an 8.5.
Texter from the 803 chimes in, which you can do on the text line 71307. Diesel says around 8.5 to a 9 is where he feels the overall confidence
I hadn't even
level
read the text.
Should be. Texter says not a Clemson fan, but the O-line would get tested. That's for sure. That comes from the 803. Fat Pate says, I'm pretty sure Dabo could start under center and win by 4 possessions. I don't know why there's a misconception out there that just because Clemson has dominated this rivalry, that Clemson would sleepwalk right now through the Carolina-Clemson game if it were to be played today. I know that Clemson's offense is playing really good right now. We also know that South Carolina's defense is playing really good right now. They've been good all season long. So we all know, Diesel, you and I both know, it would be strength on strength. Clemson's strength is their offense and South Carolina's strength being their defense. However, what is fascinating is that the history of the rivalry should not dictate your thoughts on the rivalry game, because what have we learned in sports? It doesn't matter if it's a high school rivalry or a college rivalry. If it's a rivalry game, Diesel, there's a good shot that you can throw all of the statistics out the window, and the only thing that you can count on in that game is you don't know anything. That's the only thing you can count on. You just don't truly know.
You can maybe glean something out of the last year or two at most if you've still got a majority of the main pieces still around on both sides of the football. Now, Clemson does a really good job of keeping players around for a long time. They don't lose a ton of guys to the transfer portal. They're not bringing anyone in from the transfer portal. So Dabo has a level of consistency in his program that I guarantee you a lot of coaches wish they had. A lot of coaches wish they had that. With South Carolina, it's a much tougher thing to say because, well, you've got a new quarterback, you've got a new running back, you've got a new wide receiver number one. You've got a lot of changes on that side of the football. So at best, you can look at last year's game and maybe the year before. You can't do that in this rivalry, in this game this year, because South Carolina is brand new across the field for the most part. It's a whole new football team. I think it's an astute observation there. Strength on strength. Clemson's strength is their offense. South Carolina's strength is their defense. Let's flip that the other way. And now let's go South Carolina's offense against Clemson's defense. South Carolina's offense is turnover happy, very inconsistent, great performance one week, they don't show up the next. And then a great performance the next week, and then they don't show up the next. So it's hard to know. Like it'd be a coin flip to decide which South Carolina team shows up. Is it going to be the game where they give the ball away 2 or 3 times? Or is it going to be the game where they take care of it? If South Carolina took care of the football, now we're adding stipulations to this. Yeah. If South Carolina's offense took care of the football, I think we're coming down the wire in a very, very good football game. If South Carolina doesn't take care of the football and Clemson's defense, which is good but not great, I think it's a different story. And South Carolina's offense kind of gets shut down. They struggle maybe late to keep up with Clemson and the scoring that they're doing. And Clemson kind of pulls away in the third and fourth quarter.
The 2 games that I would point to and say for South Carolina this season that I just thought the offense was abysmal was Akron and Ole Miss. Outside of that, they have lost games, in my opinion, not because of their lack of offense, but because of the turnover margin. What say you, Tolo? 71307. Billy Ho chimes in on the text line. I'm pretty confident it being at home, says Billy Ho, but I definitely think it's going to be tougher than most think. Fat Paid said, because South Carolina can only beat themselves. They tried to beat an egg, but they jumped off sides. Wesley Roberts on the stream. I will continue to bash South Carolina and enjoy it, but I would be nervous to play them as a Clemson grad because you never know, and they've shown potential this season. That being said, Clemson would win by 28. I don't know, Wesley, today, if I could sit here confidently and say Clemson would win by 28. I do think that would be discrediting South Carolina's defense a little bit if that game were played today. I really do.
I think you would see an offensive performance from Clemson somewhere in between what Alabama and LSU did. Now, not so much with the turnovers that those teams committed in those games. I'm just talking about a scoring output. So I think Clemson would probably win the game somewhere in the range of 28-14, 28-17, something like that. Not a blowout, not a massive game, but Clemson's offense has not been tested by a good defense this year, and it's just a fact. I mean, it's absurd that we have said that Clemson has put up 500 yards of offense 4 out of their 6 games this year. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show that they haven't played anybody. Now, to that point, Colin, I don't want to get too off the rails here. I think what that shows is the ACC needs to form a mid-season, late-season scheduling alliance with a conference with teams that actually play defense. It'd have to be the Big 12 at this point because the other two seem to be locked up. They need that mid to late season flex game more than the Big 10 and the SEC do because those two conferences are already playing good football teams down the stretch. The ACC is not. So if you're telling me that late in the season, let's call it week number 10, Clemson could flex on their schedule and play whoever's number one in the Big 12 right now, that would be something viable down the stretch to add to the schedule because most years Clemson plays a relatively weak out of conference schedule. This year they play Georgia and they play South Carolina. They need more than anything a mid-season data point to show that they can beat a good defense.
So I posted this on Facebook about 5 hours ago. Clemson fans, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that Clemson will beat South Carolina in November? Mike says, is this confidence based on y'all beating Wake Forest or Stanford? Laughing emoji. I like it, Mike. Funny. Sam.
Who's y'all, Mike? We didn't line up and play anybody.
No, he's talking about the people who were commenting.
Okay.
Sam says 10 out of 10. Talking about those people. Tony says we have to worry about Virginia, Louisville, VT, Pitt, and the Citadel before we can worry about beating a sorry team like South Carolina.
Ouch.
Tony throwing a little shade. Mark says 1. Chris on the Facebook post says 10. LOL. Matt says 10. Joseph says 9, but don't tell him. Nathan says 647 out of 10. Thomas says 5. So we did have, for the majority of those on Facebook that commented on the Facebook post at the Fan Upstate, we're pretty confident that Clemson could go and win the game. Texter from the 838 chimes in. I don't have a dog in this fight, but I think because of South Carolina's defense and how often they take away the ball, they can give Clemson a run for their money, if not outright beat them, says Tolo Steve. Go Buckeyes. Tolo Steve, we appreciate you listening to the show. I don't push back a ton there, Diesel. I kind of like what Tolo Steve says. I do really believe that South Carolina's defense is close to being at a level of eliteness that can win them a lot. I'll tell you this, if you don't want to believe that South Carolina's defense is elite, if you want to argue with me when I tell you that their defense is elite, I'll just tell you to answer the question of what game this season have they not even been in? When have they gotten blown out? South Carolina's defense has kept them in every game. They've had a chance. Well, Ole Miss at the halftime break, South Carolina had a very good shot to move the ball if they could have moved the ball. But again, 28 points. What they give it 28 to Ole Miss? Is that right? I mean, it's not bad.
Something like that.
I don't put 28 points to Ole Miss. Look, you can blame the defense for that game, but the offense scored zero touchdowns. Yeah. Eventually, you have to score is my point. I just believe their defense has done all they could do this season to keep them in games.
Yeah, I think if the ACC formed a mid-season scheduling alliance with the Big 12, even if you can't know who's going to be 1-1, 2-2, 3-3 by week 10 of the season at any point. Like, there's so much movement and so much room for that. But Clemson potentially, in that scenario, could face an Iowa State that's giving up 285 yards of offense each game.
Yeah.
They could be facing a BYU that's giving up 310 yards of offense. So if you just went 1, 2, and 3 and you randomized them down the stretch and you said 1 through 3, you're going to play one of their 1 through 3. You're probably going to play a pretty solid defense. I think the ACC needs that in a big way. But then again, here we go making sense. That's never going to happen.
And Fat Paid says, if South Carolina's defense is elite, then Kentucky's quarterback is Tom Brady. Fat Paid, the only thing I would say is in the SEC, if your defense can hold opponents to under 300 yards on average per game, with the way that the game has shifted to favor the offense and the elite offenses you see all across the SEC, if you tell me my defense can hold every opponent on average, below 300 yards. You don't have to call it elite. That's fine. I'll tell you this. I'll take it. I'll take it all day long, even on Sundays, holding teams under 300 yards. I think that's pretty darn good.
Cole, we're going to go catch a break. When we come back, one last plea for your upset picks before I take Friday off. So we're going to do that one more time. And a couple of new Daily Wires to talk about. That's coming up next. This is your last call for today to get in your upset picks. If you're not yet in the challenge, or if you are in the challenge, you're like, oh man, it's Thursday. I got to get my pick in. Text us now, 71307. Start your text with the word fan, and then give us your name, your game, and the spread. James Owens, who famously picked Vandy over Alabama,
and
he
only
hit. Won and hit. God, that's another $1 in the jar.
That's $3 today. You're doing good.
He said Vandy has been struggling against teams they shouldn't this year. So for my upset pick, give me Ball State over Vandy for 26.5.
No way.
James, I swear, man, if you hit
this
one,
I'm quitting this
quit
job.
The challenge.
I'm quitting the job.
It's ridiculous.
You quit the challenge. I just quit the job.
It's ridiculous.
There's no way, man.
Dan B is taking North Texas plus 11.5. Let's see. Bo Mo is taking Nebraska plus 6.5 against Indiana.
What's our number at? Do you know?
We're at 92.
Oh.
Jack, who just texted in, he's taking Mississippi State plus 17.5.
Let's go, Jack.
Jack makes pick number 92.
Cole. So did you say 112?
112 is the most we've ever had in a week.
Oh, we're going to beat it.
So we're 10 away. 20.
20.
20. Yeah,
20 away. 20. We're got
20,
this.
21 away. Technically, we're 21 away.
20 to tie, and then 21 to take. So here's what we're going to do, Tolos. I'm solo tomorrow because Diesel's on a little vacay day.
Yeah.
So tomorrow we've got to hit 21.
I'm going to be on a lot of vacay day before the end of the year, Cole, because I got a lot of vacation to take.
You can't take them with you. You might as well.
I got a lot of them to take before the end of the year.
So we're going to have to get 21 unless we get a few more in this hour. And I want to let our Tolos know, I know the show ends technically 3 to 7. But if you listen, you know it ends at like 6:52:30. So if you send in your pick at like 6:57, we probably won't see it.
Yeah.
Won't.
It's important, guys, that you get your picks in that while we're still on the air. That way, because generally speaking, if you send them in at 7:05, technically that's past the cutoff.
Yeah.
We generally don't go back and look at the text line after we finish the show and shut it down. So help us out. Make sure that we see your picks by texting them to us now at 71307. Start your text with keyword fan. Give us your name, your game, and the spread. Those of you new to the challenge, we use the spreads on ESPN.com. Go find a game for this weekend that you believe the betting underdog will win the game outright. You can pick any game you want so long as there's a spread on it. Can be a 3-point spread, could be a 10-point spread, could be a 30-point spread.
Like Ball State, Vandy.
You're less likely to hit the 30-point spreads.
What is the spread on that one, by the way?
But if you do, then you're setting yourself up really, really well. Ball State against Vandy. Let me see if I can find that one for us real quick. Ball State against Vandy is currently at 26.5. I don't know what it was as of 3 p.m.
I should have took that game too, Diesel. I should have took it.
You're messing around. Okay, so let's get to some of our daily wires call real quick because we have about 2 minutes left in the show. Haslam Sports Group has decided to build a brand new domed Cleveland Browns stadium 20 minutes away from Cleveland. Brook Park, Ohio is where they're looking at building this thing. You know, Cleveland has always had that stadium on the lake. Well, now they're moving it a little bit inland, 20 minutes away, and it's going to have a dome. Virginia coach Tony Bennett has suddenly retired just a few weeks ahead of the college basketball season. We had Tolo, was it Tom that called in real upset about I don't know if it wasn't Tom, maybe it wasn't Tom, called in real upset about the transfer portal.
Yeah, I think it was
and
Tom.
saying how dare we let coaches do this but not let players do it. So a lot of fallout to come from that one. Virginia, with Tony Bennett, always expected to be a very good football team.
That's a weird timing, man.
It really is.
Very weird timing.
The NCAA has issued their rules interpretation on how to handle a penalty for 12 players on the field in the final 2 minutes of either half. If the defense has 12 players actively participating in the down, meaning there's not a player trying to run off the field from a substitution, the offense can choose between the 5-yard penalty or to have time put back on the clock. This is meant to close the loophole that Dan Lanning in Oregon used to milk 4 seconds off the clock with just 10 seconds to go against Ohio State. Steve Shaw, the NCAA football secretary rules editor, said a guiding principle of the NCAA football rules committee is that there should be no benefit when a team commits a penalty, and you don't like that.
Don't like that. By the way, the Guardians are leading the Yankees top of the sixth. It's 2-1. Cleveland leads New York. The Dodgers and the Mets, game 4 tonight, 8:08, after there was a shellacking last night from the Dodgers. We'll see.
Dan B says, if James hits again, I may quit and never play again. He also says, this is so weak of Cleveland to do that. Dog pound in the snowy winter is awesome football. Blank a dome.
DB, tell us how you really feel. Tolo's Diesel's out tomorrow, but I'll be with you. We'll see you then, Tolo.
Bye.